send it to you. It's
God.
crazy.
She's like a town treasurer or something.
Okay, everyone,
Really fast.
welcome.
Felt so
I'm
bad.
going to call to order the meeting of the Southampton Select Board for November 23rd. It is 6 o'clock. If everyone would join me and stand and say the Pledge of Allegiance, please. Pledge of allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Okay. All right. Good evening, everyone. We're going to have kind of a busy meeting today, but hopefully we will get through it with a level of efficiency, if the chair knows what she's doing. We'll find out. Okay. So we actually have, the first thing on the agenda tonight is a presentation, and this is courtesy of the Ad Hoc Technology Committee, and this is talking about our voice over IP system. And so we have David Rooks from the IT or Tech Committee, and Chris Sorensen, who's the guest, who's going to be, the two of you, I guess, are going to tag team and explain a little bit to us. So please feel free to hit the mic and take it away.
All right. So I'm David Rooks. I was here for the quarterly readout for the Ad Hoc Technology Committee. As we had discussed during part of that report out, we had reviewed some of the priorities for Southampton, specifically Town Hall, and had made a recommendation to move forward with an upgrade of the telephony system here. So I have provided an overview in the past. I put together a summary that was passed along with some documentations and some quotes as requested from Valley Communications. Chris Sorensen is here from Valley Communications, who's a gentleman that I've been working with on kind of refining that quote and getting it ready for the group. So we wanted to offer up the opportunity to, provide a little Q&A, kind of talk a little bit about the system, see if there are any questions or things that we can provide additional detail on based on that summary.
Great. Okay. Good. So why don't you, maybe take it away. We know Chris has got a kind of a hard stop at 6:20, so we'll let you go ahead and maybe just run through some of the key features again for us, and then I know there were two different quotes, I believe, we were given, and so maybe we could talk about what that entails and
Yeah,
that kind of
there are.
thing.
So I'd be happy to run through kind of the summary as we had laid that out. And, the real reason I wanted to have Chris here in case there are questions between the two quotes, feature-wise, or if there's anything that you guys wanted to bounce off of him while he's here and available. So, some of the information that we included last time, I think originally we were looking at Town Hall, we were looking at potential other locations as well. I think the request had come back just to scale the scope of this down to just Town Hall, so we can start here where the main need is, and then look at additional locations as needed. So right now we're looking at 15 phones at Town Hall. Got some clarification from Chris. Setting this up is kind of setting up the base of the system. If you decide to add on additional locations down the road, it's perfectly okay, easy enough to do. I don't think they're all tied together in any way that we wouldn't be able to move, specific numbers out as needed. Some of the key features that I had included both in the quarterly readout as well as this summary. An auto attendant for Town Hall, so you call one number, press 1 for this department, press 2 for that department. Music on hold, messaging on hold, if there's information you want the public to hear while they're waiting for whoever they're trying to connect with. I think one of the things that we had kind of talked about, and this can be a decision based on further conversation down the road, is whether you want voicemails going to email. I think there was a question on if that becomes any sort of public record or would cause any other issues compliance-wise. Extension to extension transferring. Right now, everybody kind of has their own landline. It's not really tied together in any logical way. You've got N-way calling, in terms of adding additional people. Hey, can you pull so-and-so into the call?
So that could be a conference call kind of thing.
Yeah, exactly. Call forwarding if you're out of the office, or if you want to send calls to your mobile device, do not disturb. If it's in a situation where you've got a meeting, you don't want the phone ringing, et cetera. Caller ID, call waiting, And one of the options that had been presented, in these quotes includes a soft phone application, so something that you could run off of a PC or something along those lines that you could, it would act as your phone if you're working from home, if, we had to go remote again or anything like that. So just an overview on the equipment. I think we had looked at the Polycom BBX series.
Yep, which is similar to the phone.
Similar to what's here. There was also conversation on the Trio conference room phone, which Valley had offered, which I think would be good if you have a central location, you want to have multiple people there, but bring folks in from outside. Phones would be connected using the existing Cisco switch that we have downstairs. It's a PoE switch, so you'd be able to power the phone. No need for extra power supplies there. If for any reason there isn't an Ethernet port at each of the desks, you can always, what they call daisy chain the phone. So the phone plugs into the wall, the PC plugs into the phone, and you maintain connectivity through there. There's an existing Sonic Wall firewall that can be configured for quality of service. Ed was kind enough to confirm a couple items related to how the network will be set up to prioritize voice traffic, protect voice traffic, so we don't have issues with call quality. That's with a vendor that's already managing that device. And a couple items on deployment. I don't know if you want to speak a little bit to the deployment.
Sure. Are there any questions so far?
Yep. No, I think so far. Anybody? Questions so far?
Any questions?
Yeah.
Go ahead, Francine.
I know we're only going to have 15 lines, but if it's a two-person office, would they both have phones on their desk with the same number?
Well, yes, they can have the same number ring into those two phones, but each person would have their own extension. So the way it works is that we can configure it into a little group so that if David has a phone and I have a phone and Christine wants to call me personally, she can call my extension, it'll just ring at my phone, or she can call David. But if somebody calls into that office, it could ring both of our phones at the same time,
Okay,
and we
so
can
that's
just pick
still
up.
considered one line. It's not chewing up two of the 15.
Yeah, so when we talked about the 15, that's 15 telephones.
Okay.
So yes, the voice over IP is very much like your cell phone. You don't have an actual line on your phone, but you can get multiple calls on
Okay.
it.
Okay.
And that's how this works.
All right.
Okay. Good. Yeah. So if you want to talk about the deployment or the equipment?
Yeah,
or
the
whatever you'd
deployment,
like to-
it's really piece of cake. We have a project manager that works with you, just gets all the extensions, so we understand where the phones are going, and we can label them. So when you call each other internally, it shows up, select board's office or health department. We give out your extensions, work on the auto attendant that David mentioned, and the deployment's as easy as coming over and plugging them into a network jack. So there's a blue cable behind John over there, and we would just take that cable, unplug it from the computer, plug it into the back of this phone here, and then plug your computer in, and it's off and running. And so it's as simple as that. The part that you might have a different question on is like, well, how do we get our lines onto the system? And that's just called porting it. And we do some paperwork with all the carriers to say, hey, at such and such a time and date, we're going to say you've gotten your training, you're ready, if you feel comfortable with the phones, you say, hey, you're ready to port the numbers over. You say, let's do it. And the next thing you know, your new phone will be ringing at your desk if you get a phone call. So it sounds like magic. It kind of is, but that's how it works. And we've done many, many towns. We've done every town from Sheffield through Great Barrington, Stockbridge, City of Pittsfield, Hinsdale, Dalton, Peru, Huntington, town of Long Meadow. So we've done it many times.
Okay. I think Rini had a question first. Or no?
Yeah, I have a question. My experience, really recently, I actually ended up calling Easthampton because I was trying to help a friend figure out if they had Sharps containers and so forth. So it ended up being a big, huge circle. Like I had called, the Board of Health, and there was a very long voicemail, and then I looked online, and it said actually the fire dispatchers do have a role in that. So I ended up calling them, and I got a very long voicemail, and So I guess I just want you to let the people in town and also the residents know what are the biggest advantages of actually switching over to this? And my experience with phones and offices is that most people don't learn all the shortcuts and all, like that, what it can do is 10 times more than when you use it for.
Sure.
And how can we make that not happen?
Well, I mean, first of all, we give you a license to make it very easy. So each phone has a license that gives you features. And I agree with you 100%, is that generally when you do phone systems, and I've been doing it for 31 years, you may have heard David and I talking about, but you're 100% right that people don't use all the features. But what may end up happening is that you use 5 features, and then he may use 3 of those features, but 2 different ones. So we kind of customize it to each person. But generally what people want to use is they want to pick up the phone, get dial tone, put a call on hold, transfer a call. Maybe they want to do some speed dial numbers. So we focus a lot of our training on kind of the common things that you use in an office. And then if people want a little bit to go a little further and say, like, David mentioned, well, there might be somebody that needs to get an email sent to them when they have a voicemail message left. That's very common sometimes in actually, I don't know which would be a good example here, but if you have somebody that just doesn't, like a building inspector, right? He's not here, or that person's not here often. So when a voicemail message is left, we can take that voicemail message and email that person that a message has been left. We can actually email the message to them, or we can just let that person know to check the voicemail. So it's up to you. So we kind of customize it in that way. But you make a good point, yeah. You want to kind of think these things through and make it easy for people to use. I don't know who you're calling it, Easthampton. I can look into it if you like.
Well, no, I think, I left it for her to solve, but I just found that some of them were just very lengthy, I don't want people to feel like I call up and I just go around in circles. That's
No, yeah, you shouldn't.
Yeah, we're hoping this
That'll
will
be
be.
part of the deployment process, is understanding how you want the system to react, what options you want to present. You want to make sure you don't give somebody a call tree that's, push 19 for this and
Right.
25 for that.
That was
So
part of it.
Yeah. you wanna
Every
keep it-
extension had a long list of functions of the office, and I think that became frustrating.
Yeah,
So that's really part of the design ahead of the deployment.
ahead of time, yeah. John?
Right, so just to piggyback on Rainey first before you get to my 2 questions, is I think part of that is the workflow and what's going to be the standard process that we lay out versus letting each department be a free-for-all. But my questions are, when you have a voice data issue and someone needs to investigate the packet, who's going to do that? Is it the town administrator that's going to have to deal with that, or is there somebody out there?
There's somebody out there. I mean, I think, generally something like that, I mean, we'd have to kind of, everything's a case-by-case basis.
Correct.
So,
But there would be a mechanism in place where they could drop a help ticket of some
yeah,
sort.
so we have a portal that you can go and you can put in a ticket. I mean, I'm going to guess that probably what's going to happen, and this is what happens with a lot of my customers, is people don't know. So what's going to happen is that David's going to get a call, and he's going to call me. And he's going to say, hey, this is the issue that's going on. I can say, oh, this sounds like it's something that's on a firewall, because that's typically a firewall issue. He'll say, all right, let me call John Shannon. I think, is John still involved?
Yes.
Yeah, your IT vendor, and he'll say, oh, I just did a firmware upgrade, and maybe that's what it is. So it's kind of a little give and take, but we have mechanisms in place. I mean, one of the things that I offer is kind of the hand-holding after the whole thing. I can't fix things myself personally, but I can get people to the right sources right away.
Okay.
So that's
And
what I offer.
and then is this system designed that, one of the benefits of having the analog is that even when a power failure, they're still going to work. So is this system going to be tied in with the generator so that when the power goes out and we're on the generator mode, because, we recently found out that, well, the servers weren't on the generator during the last power failure. So have we gone through the steps to make sure that the phones will continue to work? And maybe this question needs to be directed somewhere else, but.
So I just think knee-jerk reaction is that's a much larger analysis that needs to take place downstairs, looking at all the IT equipment, what needs to be on generator, like you're speaking to, and just making sure that that's all, tied in appropriately, and you guys are prioritizing appropriately.
Well, it'd be great if that was part of this onboarding, as we're going, whether it's you or Shanahan or somebody else, to make sure that that happens, other than waiting for the first power failure
Right.
and realizing that all the phones are down.
Yeah, and I can maybe add a little bit to that is, our system is on a backup.
Okay,
And we have 5 servers throughout, and it's not Valley servers, we're an agent for somebody, but there's 5 servers that are located in different places throughout the country. So in a worst case scenario, if the generator doesn't kick on, say here, we're still answering the call in the cloud.
right.
Okay, so you could put an emergency message in there, you could still get a voicemail message left for you, you can check the voicemail messages, you can call forward. David mentioned a little bit, if you had to work remotely for some reason, let's say, it was a water breakage or something, everyone had to go home. There's different mechanisms that allow you to move very quickly to do other things.
Gotcha, okay.
And it looks like this is accompanied with a training program as well, I mean, in terms
Yeah,
of the
with this
users of the
training
business.
included as well. It is done remotely, but it's very easy to follow. We have videos that you can post on your drives if you want to have something like that for people to look through. Yes.
Yeah,
And then just
okay.
noting the time, could they give us the highlights on what's the difference between 2 quotes?
Yeah.
I see the single line item that's priced differently, but.
Yeah, so there's one quote that I'll try to use my best memory. It's about $245 or so, and the other one's around close to $280. The differences are the less expensive one, if I can even use that term, but the one that doesn't, it's
Yeah.
$30 less. That gives you pretty much everything you're talking about here: voicemail, transferability, caller ID, speakerphone, conferencing, the whole thing. The other one, what it does is it's based on Cisco's WebEx platform. And you would use that if, so the town of Great Barrington has something similar to this, but they also got the system in the middle of right when the pandemic first kind of hit and they were doing a lot of remote. The WebEx capability would allow everybody to go and work from home, but open up an application on a laptop as if they were sitting in the office.
Yep.
So for instance, I live in Florence and I work primarily from home now, and I have the WebEx bundle and it's just on my laptop. I make and receive phone calls through just a headset that's plugged into my USB port. It's plugged in, because I should probably go get a nice Bluetooth one, but that's how I make and receive my phone calls, is over my laptop. I also have the same application on my cell phone, and what's nice about that is that when I call people, it shows Valley Communications and my direct dial number, not my personal number. So particularly for me, it doesn't matter so much. For you guys, I mean, you can imagine me calling Chris every time I have a question about a town issue, calling her home number to talk to her.
Right.
So this just pushes out the number to the town hall, and people would call it back and get the auto attendant.
Okay.
So that's what the WebEx does. The other main thing that the WebEx does is, and you might want to consider this, is for your meeting room. You can have, there's different levels, but the higher level, which is about $4 or $5 more per month for this one user, would give you the capability to have up to 250 people on a video call and up to 1,000 people on an audio call. So I know that's quite a bit, but if you wanted to say, hey, we want to have, there's some type of meeting, we don't think we'll have more than 500 people, we'll send out an audio bridge for people if they want to call in and listen to it. Or if we had something else where you wanted to do a video call, you could do that. I mean, 250 seems like an awful lot, but probably if you were the presenter, it would work. I mean, I've been on them for, with all these, like marijuana places coming in. I've sat in on a couple of them where they've had town meetings, and, there's been, 75 people on the call, on an audio, video call.
Right. Yep.
So, I mean, that might be something that you think about.
Yeah, there's also a cost, I'm sure, associated with your Zoom account right now,
Right.
so that would be a direct replacement of that, so that's another cost.
okay.
there.
Right. Okay. And then they just remind me on the phones, because we've got the non-recurring costs of $1,695, so we're going to be renting or buying these phones? What do we?
It was an option. So there was one thought that maybe what we'd do is do it on an installment plan, which gives you a lifetime warranty of the phones. That's for 36 months. At the end of the term, you own the phones.
Okay.
That cost goes away. I think the cost was around $50 a month or so. And that cost goes away, so you don't have to do anything, it just stops. It really comes down to your budgeting, where you are, the whole thing.
Okay.
Was there a decision about not including like the library, water, highway? Was that more because they were off-site, because of the expense? I'm just curious why we're starting with the town hall
Yeah,
personnel.
so there was a bunch of back and forth on how to approach this, and I think the group kind of decided, let's start small, let's start at the town hall. That's where the most immediate need is right now. And then start looking at, other areas, whether it's the highway department, whether it is the library, or anything along those lines, whether you want to integrate those with that same system. So it
Okay.
kind of kept things simple. We know the infrastructure here, we know the circuits, we know, everything that's in place here. And it's just an easy, consolidated scope at this point.
Okay.
Expanding to those is as simple as just saying, hey, we need a couple of phones at the highway department. We're ready for you.
So just on that point,
Yeah.
so the primary box here at Town Hall, those phones could go into, you wouldn't have to print another box?
There's no box, there's just phones. That's the beauty of the whole thing.
Okay. Okay.
Okay. And then we were given a list of the telecom inventory that I guess you had worked on from looking at the various Verizon bills and tried to figure out how many lines there were that we were being billed and paying for right now. It's interesting, some of these are only fax lines and not phone lines?
Yeah, so what I went through essentially everything that I saw on the Verizon bills that Ed, you had provided to me. So I went through and captured anything that was unique there. I also went through the town directory, which you guys have listed out there. Just tried to pull together as many numbers as I could. I know, Ed, you did some other research to try to identify some of like the alarm panel lines, which obviously wouldn't be posted online or anything like that. So there may still be more to do here, and really that process goes, full bore once we get the, customer service record from Verizon or any of the numbers, whoever owns any of the numbers that would be ported there.
Yeah.
And that will really get fleshed out. I'm sure, Valley will work with, whoever the representative is to go through and say, yes, this line, it goes here, we've confirmed that, yes, we're gonna port that, no, don't port the alarm lines, don't port the fax lines, whatever it may be.
So am I correct in understanding that we would, or assuming that we would have two systems in play at the same time? I mean, before we formally say, okay, bye-bye Verizon and we're porting over, we've got
That's correct.
two systems on board and there's a time at which then we slowly get rid of Verizon, or all at once we say we're getting rid of that old line and we're on the new system?
So when it ports, when it'll port from Verizon over to the carrier that Valley would use, essentially on that date, that's where Verizon would say, we no
That's it,
longer
right then
have.
and there?
Yeah,
Okay.
we
So it's
can't
not
bill
like
you
a
for that anymore.
dual system, okay. All right,
Right, but we're always gonna have a Verizon bill.
Yes.
yes,
Yeah,
no,
okay,
we will,
all right.
yeah.
Correct.
But,
So I think as we go through that process, we'll be able to really refine what the number is in terms of what's
Right.
falling off the Verizon bill. We were hoping to do a little bit more of that, but I think we really do need to go through that process.
Sure. Okay.
I think Ed and I kind of estimated it's probably going to be about half the numbers.
Yeah.
So there's somewhere in the 30s
Okay.
on that
all right.
account.
And I know Chris probably has to leave, but I would like David to go through the cost analysis part that you wrote up for us, if you would.
Yeah, so-
Just so
so-
everybody's listening, yeah.
Yeah, Chris actually caught one correction on that, so I think I had brought that in from our quarterly report. The proposed telecom monthly cost for the system from Valley is actually lower than what I had in there. So those were those two options. It was the 244 and change, and then the 270 something and change. Those are the two options. So based on that, that's what the new cost would be. It drops down to somewhere in the, what was it, the
Roughly $51.
$51 after the fact, once the phones are paid off. And then based on what we find that's gonna move away from Verizon and over to Valley's carrier, that's when we'd really kind of figure out what the total cost savings would be.
But you're looking here, the way I'm reading this, is about 50% of our cost savings of about 50% is what I'm hearing from this? Is that-
That's the estimate, that's the number of lines that we see coming off that bill. Again, I think, we'd probably have a better visibility into that once we get that customer service record from Verizon themselves.
Okay. Good, okay. Anybody else have some other comments, questions? Joe? Yeah. Chris, we'll let you leave. I know you're running late, so
Thank you.
thank you for coming.
Yeah, I usually don't say, can I stop talking, but I do have to run. Thank you. Well, thanks for having me. If any questions, I'm sure you'll ask David, and I'll get right back to you on them, and
Sure,
appreciate it.
thanks.
All right,
Thank
thank
you very
you.
much, appreciate
Thanks,
it.
Chris.
Yeah. Okay, guys, any further thoughts, questions? What would you like to do with this? Do you want to have time to study it a little bit more, look at the service agreements? Are we ready to think about doing this, or what's your?
Well, I would just say from my point, I'm comfortable with doing it. I mean, I don't necessarily see this as a cost savings for the remainder of this year, only because we're not doing the outlying buildings.
Right.
So maybe at best, we'll cut the Verizon bill in half, which is basically going to offset this. And then as we clean everything up in the next fiscal
Next
year,
time.
potentially see a budget savings. But at the same time, you're updating the equipment, modernizing it.
And, I mean, there's a benefit to that right there, as it is. I will say, as we go through that process, as we go through the motions of identifying what all the numbers are that are out there, whether they port or not, you may find some numbers say, hey, we're not even using that.
Agreed.
And
Yeah.
can cancel that in that whole
Sure.
process,
Yeah,
so.
just to be sure on the right numbers, yeah.
Yep.
I mean, if you can save money before June 30th, I'm all for it, but August 1st is when I want to see the savings.
Absolutely.
All
It
right.
doesn't seem like it's going to be more. I'm just wondering if the people that in the offices are happy about this. Because we've been talking about it for a long time. I mean, I think that having it be able to access it through your email, having to do it remotely, I mean, I think that's a huge help.
Yeah.
I know there are some that have been, asking for a system where they can transfer phone calls and
Yeah.
whatever. I think others are just, put it in place and, they'll learn to use it and,
Okay.
yeah, and they'll see the advantages.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So do we want to make a motion on this? And are we looking at the WebEx one or the other one?
Nobody has a feeling one way or the other. I'll make a motion to approve the WebEx version at
Okay.
$274.07 for the first 36 months.
Okay,
I'll second that.
all right. Any further discussion?
And does the select board prefer to lease the phones or purchase them outright?
My motion would be to take advantage of the interest-free leasing here.
And I will say,
51's
I believe
57.
the town hall will need one phone that wasn't accounted for, which will be 16, if the system will accommodate it.
Not a problem. It's an easy adjustment to make, and we can certainly facilitate that. If we just want to upgrade it and add one additional phone that's not tied to a specific department or line, easy enough.
Will there be a phone in here and/or upstairs in the conference room?
I believe that if it's still in here, they were actually talking about including a conference phone
calling,
that
yeah.
could be used either here or upstairs.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. Yeah, Chris had offered to include it's called a trio conference room
Yeah.
phone
Okay.
at no
It'd
cost.
be good to actually have one in both if we could. I mean, there's a lot of meetings that happen upstairs too, so possibly.
Chris,
Yeah.
I'd modify my motion to also empower the town administrator to execute the contracts on our behalf.
Okay. All right.
Thank you, John.
Could I have a second to that modified motion?
I think Francine seconded.
One
Oh, no.
second.
Did you already?
Second it?
Okay. All right. If no further discussion? All right. Could I have your votes, please? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay.
Thanks
So be it.
very much.
Thanks very much.
Of course,
you.
absolutely.
And thanks
Thanks,
back
David.
to the tech committee for all the work you've been putting into this and all the research you've done, so, thanks.
Ready?
Ed will be in touch.
Okay, sounds great. Thank you.
All right, thank you. All right, so we are at open time for the public. This is the first few minutes of the meeting that we dedicate usually to anyone who's got some things to say that has nothing, that is not already on the agenda item, as an agenda item. So Tammy, yes, go ahead.
Tamara Lunas, 298 College Highway, Historical Society President. I just wanted to let everyone know that the Southampton Historical Society 2022 calendars have come in. They are $15. We will be selling them. I'm trying to coordinate with the Lions Club when they're doing their toy drives again, so that we will be out there. And I've had a few businesses upset that we didn't contact them about an ad. And I want to let everybody know that from the Celebrate Southampton Blue Ribbon sponsors, all of those people have been put into the calendar. So we are recognizing all of them. So if anybody needs anything, please either contact a Historical Society board member or on our Facebook page, and we will get you your calendars.
Okay, very good. Thank you. Okay, great. Anybody else? Hi.
Good evening. My name's Jerry Paquette. This is my son, our son Owen Paquette, my wife Tammy Paquette. We're basically here to request that the town approve Owen, who is currently a sophomore in Hampshire Regional. We request the town to approve him to transfer to Smith Vocational and allocate the funds for that. Is that school of choice or program? But that's why we're here. So we have to have the town formally approve this.
Okay.
And
Ed, you want to mention this a little bit?
yes, you have the letter in your packets from the Paquettes concerning Owen, and it's my fault it doesn't have an agenda item. My draft actually did have it, so you can take it up now or under any other business. Going back to the report I received from the school central office from about 5 or 6 weeks ago, when the board actually approved one other late enrollee to Smith Vocational. I extrapolated from that. At the time, there was like $39,000 available at that time, so I subtracted out another set of tuition, and that should leave us with about $20,000 and some change. So there is enough currently in that vocational tuition account to accommodate one more student.
Allow this transfer? Okay.
Yes.
And you haven't heard anything more recent from the school itself, though?
I had reached out to the central office last Tuesday and again yesterday for any updates, but did not hear back. So they may have not received any updates from Smith or from Westfield as far as enrollment goes.
Okay, yep.
If anything, the enrollments would be decreased, not increased, right? They couldn't be increased unless going through this process.
What's that?
If anything, the numbers would only be decreased for enrollment. They couldn't increase the enrollment without going through this process.
The only way it could increase without going through this process is if a West Hampton student who resides in West Hampton, who was going, and the same would be true for, Cheshire, Goshen, or whatever, that goes to Smith Vocational, were to move during the school year into Southampton, that becomes an automatic change.
Well,
Okay.
okay.
But other words, not.
But otherwise, it would, if we had another late enrollee in, December, January that was looking to do the same thing, they have to come before the select board and ask approval for that student to go to either Smith Vocational or to Westfield Vocational.
Right, okay.
Or I should say Westfield Technical Academy.
Owen, would you like to say a few words yourself about why you'd like to go to Smith Voc? Feel free, just pop up to the mic a little bit closer.
Yeah, sure. So I just think it's better because I've always been better doing hands-on learning, and I don't sit very well in a class all day. So I feel like me going to Smith would doing the week in school learning and then doing the week for doing a shop would be really good for me, because that's just how I learn better.
Great, okay. And you're a sophomore this year, right now?
Yes.
Okay, thanks.
In what particular area are you hoping, which shop are you hoping to get into?
Either machine shop or automotive.
Okay.
Well, the funding of this goes through the town, not the way the other ones do for the school, so that's why you're here.
Yeah.
Just
Yes, John?
knowing where this falls on the agenda, which we'll probably get to at 10:30 tonight, I make a motion that we go out of order we take this up now, since the parents and the
Sure.
individual is here. And then, as a big advocate of vocational school, I make a motion that we approve this.
Okay,
I'll second both of those motions.
all right. Okay, any further discussion? All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Yeah, thanks.
Good luck, Owen.
Good
Thank you
luck.
for coming,
Aye.
and good luck, yeah. Thanks for coming.
Thank you very much, appreciate it.
You're welcome. Okay. Yes, yes, sorry, more public. Open time for the public, yes, go ahead.
Cindy Palmer, 71 Glendale Road. During this week of Thanksgiving, I'd like to say thank you to the many, many, many volunteers in our town, from sports coaches to people that are on boards and committees, as well as our paid staff in our town, which are really important. And I know later on in the agenda tonight, there's going to be an item talking about the right of first refusal, and I specifically want to say thank you to the 4 committees and boards that deliberated on this and are, presented their findings so you can have full deliberation. I'm told this is kind of very, very good and very progressive, and it didn't always happen that way. So I do want to say thank you, and I want to say thank you to the select board, because you work long hours late into the night, and I know that on days of select board meetings, you spend a lot of time prepping for this. So that's, I think, on behalf of many, many people in our town. Thank you very much.
Oh, thanks, Cindy.
Thank you, Cindy.
Appreciate it. Okay, anybody else? Open time for the public? All right. Hearing none, I think we will keep on moving on and get on to our agenda here. So with that, we have, again, our reports system that we have started, which have been not exactly quarterly, as we said, but an update from the various departments or committees themselves. And tonight, the first one up is the water commissioners. So, Jim.
Hello.
Hello. Hi.
I'm Jim Walunas. I'm the chair of the Water Commission. So currently, we're working on adjusting the pH out of our Glendale well. The pH is a little aggressive, and DEP has ordered us to adjust that. So the project is in the planning stages right now. It's been approved by the DEP. We just have to install it, and it's going to be installed down at the well, which is on Route 10, just north of the corner of Glendale. Down the hole, you'll see it there. It's expected to cost about $12,000, and we should have the system up and running midsummer next year. And our pH will be within the state standards, and it'll solve a few problems with the water quality. The next project we're working on is the replacement of the original water system, which is about 10,000 feet of 90-year-old water main. It runs through the whole center of town. It's basically from Former Road all the way down to Brickyard. Well, we just replaced that section from along the bridge, but it goes past Brickyard a little bit by about 600 feet. And it goes down Elm Street and all through the center of town. That project is just in the design phase. You can see right now there's surveyors going up and down the highway. If you've seen them, that's all for us. The design phase should be completed sometime at the end of spring next year, and then we'll decide how to proceed with that. It's going to be about $2.5 to $3 million worth of work. We have some $700,000 in approved borrowing, and we were hoping to get some of the COVID relief money to go with that. That way we could complete part of it in phases. And then after that, we would have to figure out how to borrow more money to complete the whole project. It may take a long time for this to get completed. It may take 10 years, but the main is in pretty tough shape.
You said it's been there how long?
About 90 years.
Wow.
Yeah. They actually cut into it a year ago to fix a leak, and they couldn't find a spot where they couldn't poke a screwdriver through. They had to keep going down the street before they could cap it. So we expedited that and started working on it. So
And that type of infrastructure project would be one that ARPA funds would be
I'd say that
eligible to
should
be
be a-
used
An
towards.
ARPA eligible one from what we've seen.
We'd be
anyway.
happy with 10% of that, but if you want to give it all to us, we'd be very happy with that, so.
And it would obviously have to be in phases anyway, no matter what you did, I'm sure, just, you know.
Yeah, it's a lot of money. Of course, the longer you wait, the more it
More
costs.
Well, you have to use it by 2024.
Yeah, but we'll definitely have part of it ready by then. I mean, some of it we could do right now because the section that's past Brickyard is already designed.
Right.
So, I mean, we can get going at any time, but the entire project's going to take a while. So that's why we're doing it in phases,
Okay.
so. We're also been working on an employee retention plan. That was suggested to us by the DEP in our every 3-year review. They review us every 3 years, and that was one of their concerns, is that we have to have a plan to keep employees in the long term for the stability of the system. So we've been working on that, trying to get their pays to where it belongs and, you know, making sure that we have a good system in process to keep them happy. And then we're also updating our water system master plan, which is six years old at this point. We're moving the projects that we completed off of the master plan, and we're adding in the projects that were further down the line. We're behind schedule on that too. With the master plan, we should have been a lot further along at this point, but, you know, money and timing and all that.
How often does a master plan get updated?
Well, we did it 7 years ago, and before that, the master plan was 35 years old. So our current master plan is between 7 and 5 years old, but we're updating it this year to keep it current. Before it just got ignored and put aside, but you have to have one for the DEP. That's another thing that they get upset about, and the reason why we ended up doing it was because some 8 years ago, I think the DEP told us we had to. So it's a nice document.
I don't think I've ever seen it personally, if that's something that can be shared and maybe put on.
It's on our website.
It is on the website?
Yeah,
Okay,
well,
then
I
need to
think
look
all
for
of it is. I don't think the maps are on there, but I think all of the
Okay,
plan is on there.
I need to look for it, then I haven't done
Yeah,
that. So
it's
thanks. Yeah.
a rather boring read if you don't, if you don't like water. I like water, though I like reading it, so.
That's fine. Okay. That's my turn.
Currently, our spending is within budget. We have no concerns.
Okay.
And then on staffing, we are working on changing our staffing structure to make the DEP happier. Possibility of adding an assistant superintendent position. We haven't gotten there yet. We've just started thinking about it, and we're going to start bringing that around to the appropriate boards probably in the next 6 months. So.
Okay.
And for long-term issues, we're worried about water supply and redundancy. We're thinking about looking for a new water source. We do have a water source that was investigated back 30 years ago at Pequot. That's where our headquarters are. There's actually a drilled well out there, and they ran out of money and they stopped working on it. So that's a long-term plan for us to investigate if that's a useful water source. And if it is, we'll add it in, and that'll give us a little more redundancy. Currently, our backup is Easthampton, which is the new building up by Big Y. So, and actually, the backup system had to be used this summer for about 3 weeks, because right after we completed the backup system, our pump went down. And with COVID, we could not get material we needed. It took about 3 weeks to get the pump. So we were on Easthampton Water for about 3 weeks early in the summer. So other than that, everything's going well. Any questions?
How about questions from the select board? Anybody?
I guess with the supply of water and your forecasting for the future, any implications for growth?
So we're fine if nobody waters their lawn. We could supply enough water for everybody to live, you know, because we only use a third of our water in the middle of winter.
Yeah.
And in the summer, we reach our legal limit. That's why we implement bans. There's also bans that are implemented just based on it being dry. The state doesn't want people outdoor watering. So our biggest problem is lawns. We hate lawns. So if, you know, we didn't have any lawns, we'd have enough water for years.
And other than what you just mentioned about the 3-week need from Easthampton, was there more this summer that you had to
Yeah,
use it?
well, the new system comes on and off as it needs, and actually, we exercise it now, so it runs every month. Because if we don't run it every month, it can't legally be used. So we run it every month now for a little bit, and we get water from them almost continuously, which is a small part. You know, it's run on a schedule now. In Easthampton, we communicate with them, and they currently sell us water for a little bit of like a bulk rate. They sell it to us, but it's expensive. We don't like buying it from them, so.
And do you set yourself a sort of a maximum number of gallons or whatever that you buy, or?
It's budgeted, yeah.
Yeah, okay,
But that's uncontrollable almost,
sure.
because we really can't go out and turn off people's sprinklers. We can just tell them as much as we can, and you know, hopefully they'll shut it off.
Conserve water, right.
But you know, we can't walk up to somebody's house and shut it
Sure.
off because they're living there.
Understood.
So-
Understood, yeah.
Maybe you can answer the question that a lot of people asked me this summer. With all the rain we had, why do we have a water ban?
That has to do with the state. So there's a trigger, and the trigger is based on the same trigger that Easthampton has. So they go by stream flow or Connecticut River water level. There's different gauges in the area. There's one up on the Mill River, there's one on the Connecticut River, and when the state sees it go below a certain flow, they want to ban the water. That's all about keeping water for fish. So if you take too much groundwater, it causes streams to drain into the ground, and then the fish can't live. So that's how that's all set.
So it's set by the state?
Set by the state, yeah. Yeah, the DEP controls us very closely. They always in contact with us and always telling us something, so.
One of the last times you were, somebody else spoke to us, and we asked about the Tycarmody Reservoir and Holyoke's role and all that sort of thing, that there would have to be a treatment plant that would involve tons of money, and it wasn't worth it, and Easthampton was a much better option. Is that completely off the table, or is that revisited? Any
Reservoir?
Holyoke, yeah.
We're not gonna give it up because we're allowed to, but we have to it would have to be treated, so we would have to put in a treatment plant, which would have to have
Yeah,
a full staff.
yeah.
It would, I believe because of working rules, you'd end up with 2 people working full-time, so 3 shifts.
Oh, really?
So you would look at 6 people just to run a water plant.
Oh,
The Holyoke water's not that great. They just had trouble with turbidity recently, which is the reservoir flips in the fall and spring, so the dirty water comes up and the clean water goes down, or opposite, sorry. And you end up with the dirty water coming out the pipe. So it's not a great source. I mean,
No.
it's good to keep because maybe someday we'll need it, and,
Right.
you know, but not in our generation.
yeah.
You know, 100 years from now, somebody will figure out something and use it, so I don't think we'd ever give it up. We're guaranteed, I think it's 300,000 gallons a day from them, I believe, if we want to take it. And then after that, they would start charging us. But we can take unlimited, but we get charged after 300,000 gallons. So it's good for the future of the town, but not
Right.
for now.
Okay, all right. All right, any other questions? If not, thank you, Jim, appreciate
Thank
it.
you. Happy
All right.
Thanksgiving.
Thanks for coming.
Jim?
Sure.
All right. Great. Next, Public Safety Complex, Building Committee. Charlie?
Evening, everyone. I'm Charlie Konecki. I'm the chair of the Public Safety Building Committee in this, as it keeps evolving. The committee itself has been sort of inactive for the past year based on what was going on with our world. We've only actually had 2 formal meetings prior to this. The discussion has been, one, the reformation of this committee, because one, we are sorely lacking membership to run this committee. And that is a priority, so if anybody's listening to me, please put your name in and get on this committee. Our public safety departments are in desperate need of proper facilities to continue operating. I think we all know this. The work that this committee has been involved in started back in 2011, and we've been trying to move this forward. The committee submitted to the Select Board basically an overview of what we felt the committee should consist of. for membership, and we also submitted to the board the scope of responsibility that we felt we should be looking at. I understand you're trying to move the meeting tonight because of town meeting and all the rest of that. I think this is something we need to get into in December, probably after town meeting.
Correct.
I did share with you a PowerPoint electronically, so you could actually see what took place in the past in a simple-to-read language. And we need to discuss that more thoroughly. But in our mind, we really need to start getting this project going in the next year and try to get some direction as to where we're going to establish this facility. I know of a lot of rumors out there about properties and stuff like that, but all that falls into your board as to where that's going to go. So that's a quick and easy summary.
Okay.
I'm open for questions.
Yeah, okay. Any questions for anybody from that now? What we're planning on doing, we do have this PowerPoint printed out for us in the packet tonight, but it was more just for background information, and we knew that we were going to have a pretty heavy meeting tonight, and we weren't really ready to discuss all this, so I think we'll put it off until the early December meeting. Most likely it'll be on the agenda in December.
I would suggest after town meeting.
Yeah,
Yeah,
right,
because,
we'll have another meeting, most likely we'll have one more meeting after town meeting, I would think, in December before Christmas.
Yes,
somewhere in there. Yeah.
because of license
21st,
renewals,
7th
you'll
and the
definitely
21st.
Right,
need to
exactly.
have one after town meeting.
I'm just thinking prior experience.
Yeah.
You don't want to have something of this size prior to a town meeting where you have all these other things sitting on the plate that need to
Exactly.
be moved forward.
No, that's kind of the thought process, so, good.
Okay, very
So
good.
we'll pick it back up and we'll get back in touch on that.
And you also have the charge, the original charge in your packet, if the board
Yes.
wants to make any changes to either the charge or
Yeah.
how the appointments are done, which I would recommend at least doing terms for the appointments rather
Right, you
than
talked about
till
that.
completed.
So will there be an opportunity to create this charge and composition
I think
in one of the
there's
one
been
of the
a
next
draft
meetings?
charge, I believe the committee met and has presented a draft charge.
You have a
Which
draft charge?
Recommendations to the select board, right?
Yeah,
So I'm just
recommendations.
wondering, are we going to do that at another time?
I think we'll do that in December, yeah, when we
Oh,
have our
okay.
meeting on this. Yeah,
Because
we're
I
not
have
gonna do
some, I just have some suggestions.
Okay, we're not going to do that.
I also, and I believe you have it in your packet, gave you the two previous charge
Yeah.
as this thing evolved,
Right,
so that you have stuff to draw back from.
correct, yep, we do, yep. So we will get back together again in December on this, okay?
Very good.
Good, thanks for coming, Charlie, appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thanks, Charlie.
Okay,
Happy Thanksgiving.
yeah,
May I interrupt for 1
Yes.
second? I'd like to call the meeting of the Public Safety Building Committee and move us to the hallway
uh-huh,
for a quick discussion.
okay. Thanks.
Huh? They have a quorum.
They have a quorum, apparently.
Oh, it's posted?
Okay,
Huh?
okay, so they're moving off to their own meeting, is that correct?
Correct.
All right. Okay. Moving on. Next is the police department. Ian?
Good evening.
Evening.
Hey, how are you?
Ian Illingsworth, Police Chief. I'll start with the categories as outlined by the Select Board with current priorities and activities. As far as priorities, staffing is probably our #1 priority right now. I'll get into a little bit greater detail when it comes to that category of personnel updates. We're manageable, but it's becoming some issues just based on almost just circumstances that ultimately will no longer be present, but currently are, such as use of family medical leave, police reform, and military deployments. So those are affecting our staffing on a short-term basis, but that's something that we're working on right now. Meeting the mandates of the police reform, which is the Justice, Equity, and Accountability Act compliance, policy updates, and personnel mandates. So those are things we're working on. The policy updates, that's not too difficult to manage, you know. In fact, most of our policies were already in compliance with it. We just have to, some new policies have been, are required, but as far as the policy implementation, that's not an issue. It's more so how it affects the hardship really is the certification of police officers. Investigations, we have multiple ongoing investigations currently. Another one is traffic calming. We have 3 considerable complaints specifically to Glendale Road, Line Street, and County Road for speeding. And we're trying to address those by having police presence there, as well as moving our mobile radar sign that we have. We have 2 radar signs. One is somewhat of a semi-permanent radar sign that's a solar sign, and it requires, you know, we can keep it there for 3 or 4 months and move it to different places. The mobile one, we can move just on any signpost, and that's usually how we address short-term complaints. But we do get a lot of complaints relative to Glendale Road, Line Street, and County Road, so we're trying to address that.
Gee, can I just ask you, do you have data that you get from those signs?
We do, however, the mobile sign that we use on a more temporary basis, that subscription has expired, and I didn't have the funding to reinstate that subscription. So we do get data on that, and it's good for traffic studies in particular. A funding transfer was made to see if we could get those subscriptions.
It's one of the articles.
Right.
The articles.
Yeah.
And then
STM.
the solar sign, that subscription ends in February of '22. So yes, they do, to answer your
Okay.
question. And then the other is, you know, recently we've just had some encounters where officers have found senior citizens in vulnerable positions. So we're just trying to work on with the COA to try to come up with maybe some programs or at least awareness and help out seniors that might be in some vulnerable positions or maybe not have the family resources. And so those are our current priorities and activities. As far as budget spending status and concerns, on an overview basis, we're within the acceptable expenditure rate. However, in the individual accounts, not so much. I've asked for some interdepartmental budget transfers. In particular, our overtime
Right.
budget has been taxed for those reasons, for shift coverage for FMLA, as well as investigations, training, and critical incident responses. And in particular, you know, we had that investigation at Big Y, if you know had heard anything about that. I mean, that as of right now has cost over $2,000 in overtime. Just to give you an example of how some of these unexpected incidents can create it takes a lot of time to investigate and a lot of manpower. So we have that. Because we're in the process of trying to hire a vacant police officer, full-time position, we had some surplus in the police wages, so that's where a lot of these transfers are coming from. So it's not going to be anything that we're requesting more from the town. It's within interdepartmental. Like I said, the police overtime, we're at, as of the 16th, I think, is when I printed out this report, we were at 54% expended. We should be at around 37.5 at that time. So that, you know, that's why I'm asking for this transfer and why it's necessary. There's been some unexpected costs for police expenses. In fact, one cruiser recently just had to have $3,800 in repairs due to transmission issues. Also, fuel costs are, I'm seeing about $100 to $200 a month extra in fuel costs. And I'm preparing for possibly having to put somebody through the academy, which I had not budgeted for. The intent was to try to get a certified police officer trained. We only had 2 applicants for that position. One had already been disqualified by us, and the other we're currently trying to determine whether or not her certifications are approved by the Municipal Training Council. If they are, and she meets the background, then, you know, that is helpful. We won't need to put somebody through the academy, but otherwise we will. The academy costs about $5,500. That's to include tuition and equipment, as far as just expenses. If you look at the budget and you see the police equipment maintenance, it shows that it's about 85% expended. That's because a lot of that was contractual that we had to pay up front at the beginning of the fiscal year, so don't be too alarmed by that. Building expenses, it showed about 14.33 expended. It's not an accurate depiction, because sometimes the power credits have not been realized yet, so we haven't been paying any electrical bills. That will come in once the accountant's office has that opportunity. So that's not, when you look at the expense report, that's not accurate. Communication wages, the communications department within acceptable expenditure range, and the communication expenses as well. I typically, and I will be applying for the support and incentive grant and the training grant through the state 911 department. To meet the requirement, there were certain things that the assessor's office had to do, and I reached out to them, and Janine took care of that almost immediately for me. So it made us in compliance to actually apply for the grant. So I'll be applying for that grant within the next week.
And this
or
is a
so.
grant you got last year as well, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. Personnel and staffing updates. This has been pretty much the greatest obstacle for the police department, as I expressed to the Reform Act, has created an issue in particular for communities that use part-time police officers. So I know I've expressed this and we've had correspondence about this, so I don't want to discuss it too much and take too much of your time, but part-time officers have to bridge over to the certification of a full-time police officer.
Right.
So they call it a bridge academy. There's 3 years they have to do it, but it depends on when or where their name falls in the alphabet. So I now have, currently, usually fully staffed, we have 10 part-time police officers. I have 7 right now. I have 3 of those officers who next year have to get bridged over, already expressed that they have no intention of getting bridged over. So as of July 22, I'm sorry, July 23, they'll no longer be certified as police officers. Based on those conditions as well as attrition, I'm not going to be able to hire part-time officers unless they're retired, or perhaps I put in a PRF rather, for 2 part-time officers. I just submitted it today to the Personal Policy and Procedures Board, and my objective is to see if perhaps we can get some retired police officers that might want to still work shifts that are certified, or even university police officers that might want some municipal experiences as well, which I know some do. So, but I don't know. It's a shot in the dark. I don't know what I'm going to get out of it. So the part-time status of police officers will no longer be available unless they are certified, trained officers. So that's the hardship. We, the last 2 fiscal years, not including this fiscal year, the last 2 fiscal year, part-time officers covered approximately 4,200 shift hours. So, as you can see, there's a lot of vacancies.
Can you just elaborate a little bit about why these, I think you said 3 do not intend to participate in the Bridge Academy? What's sort of the rationale?
It will require them so there's a certain amount of training the Bridge Academy requires.
I believe I read 200 hours or something in the paper?
So some of it is online, which they can do on the shift.
Okay.
But 3 weeks of it is not, it's in person. And I can completely understand this, they're not willing to give up 3 weeks of their full-time job or vacation for a part-time position. So that's part of the reason. And some of the officers, they've been just officers for a long time, and they just don't want to have to go through the academy again. So that's the main feedback I'm getting, is the fact that they have to use their personal time or their vacation time, their benefits from their full-time job to meet the Bridge Academy.
So there isn't any allowance for that to be covered for them?
No.
I mean, they have to basically use a vacation or personal time to go to the
That's
academy?
because they have to be in
I
person.
thought the ARPA funds covered for the police reform.
They can pay for our training, for instance, when I send them to the like I said, the online training, they can do on shift. But when they go to their defensive tactics training and firearms training, as well as their emergency vehicle training, I can pay them through ARPA funds to go and pay their salaries, but I don't believe that the company, I think they still have to use their vacation time, because they have to take time off in their private company.
Yeah, okay. So
Or
the
their
training's
private-
covered, but not the time.
Exactly.
Not the time itself,
Yes.
yeah. Okay.
So that is, we're working on it.
Yeah.
We're, and that brings up a lot of, as a department head, resiliency. I'm really trying to work on the resiliency of the current officers, because I don't want to see burnout. And as a result, when we're lacking staff, officers get forced, you can't leave shifts unfilled. There is an expectation, and so, the personnel's resiliency is important to me, and I'm working on it to make sure that there's no burnout, because there's a lot of stuff going on right now.
Yeah.
Yep.
Not only do they see stuff that most people don't see, the societal issues going on right now, there's just the pandemic, a lot of stuff going on. I want to make sure that their mental wellness is good and maintains good. So that's something further elaborate in the report. But so that's as far as the staffing goes. The communications department their staffing is stable right now. We have enough people. I would like to hire one more part-time dispatcher, just to ensure we have a dispatcher on a medical leave right now, a part-time dispatcher on a medical leave, that in the event that the circumstances won't allow this employee to come back, I want to make sure that it's covered, because this employee does take shifts.
Okay.
Plans and events for the next 4 to 6 months. We're holding, in collaboration with the Lions Club at the police department, on December 11th, the toy drive, the annual toy drive we'll have, where Mr. and Mrs. Claus and some elves will be there to accept some donated gifts. If you can't make the toy drive, you can always just bring the gifts to the police department. Anybody listening to this can just bring unwrapped gifts to the police department, where we then provide them to the Lions Club. You may see some officers right now looking a little scruffy, their beards. We do have a facial hair policy, but for the month of November, it's called No Shave November. It's a drive to help the Home Base Foundation, which assists veterans with PTSD, and it's a fundraiser for the officers that choose to grow their facial hair out. The next drug take-back day, we don't have a date on that, but we'll be partaking in that at the police department. We'll be assisting the COA and the Hampshire County Sheriff's Office with the Sanford Seniors. And this is the first year, I think, in at least 1 year, because of the pandemic, that the officer will be at the school for DARE. Last year they didn't have it, so. And suggested, long-term issues for select board consideration and planning, staffing, as I've already elaborated on, and just for me personally, I believe strongly in employee resiliency and longevity, and as even Jim Luna said, employee retention. The town has some extraordinary officers with a lot of experience. The majority of the full-time officers are anywhere between 15 to 30 years experience, and that's important. And I want to make sure that we retain these officers, as well as support, their longevity and resiliency. So that's a personal goal of mine, working on that. Suggested tools and resources for job efficiency and cost efficiency. Seek grant opportunities. I'm always looking for grant opportunities. I have found that this year I did not seek a particular grant for traffic campaigns, because I don't have the personnel to support the traffic campaigns. It requires a lot of overtime and extra work, and consequently, with all their shift coverages and forced overtime, I don't want to put even more of a burden on them. What those traffic campaigns do give us are some equipment, and that's where we get those mobile the radar speed signs. So I hope to next year do that, once things get a little bit stable. Like I said, this is just a temporary issue. We'll work it out. And I was asked to submit an equipment maintenance schedule. I will be requesting a cruiser for next year. Currently, right now, we have 5 line cars. Each line car is about, every year, is about 24,000 miles on it. Of the line cars, that's not including my car. Of the line cars, I have one car with 109,000 miles on it, and the other car shows 155,000, but I know it's more than that because the dashboard just doesn't work properly. It's a 2011 Crown Vic, so that would be the one I'd want to replace. And I just provided you with an up-to-date attachment of the accounting system from our police department. And this is as accurate as it gets. This is a day-to-day.
Yep.
So if you have any questions or comments, I'd be happy to answer.
Good. No, thanks. Anybody, questions, anybody? Just, I think, just in general, as we look at, as you're talking about equipment replacement and cruisers and stuff, I mean, just probably to, I'm sure you've already got it laid out somewhere, we should probably just have a copy of at some point, the replacement, the fleet replacement plan that you have in mind?
I believe that would have been in the 10-year plan that we submitted every year for capital improvement. It should be in there, but I can certainly provide you with a copy of that.
Yeah, it might be good just to have that handy so we know. I think we're going to get better, hopefully, at trying to plan more regular acquisition if we can, and hopefully with our new committee that we're starting up, we're going to try and look at ways to, be more efficient and hopefully bring in some resources or share some resources, save some resources, and be more financially stable so that we can afford these things on a regular basis and not get backlogged with everybody's equipment needs and vehicle needs especially. Any comments, questions?
No, just thank you.
No,
It's very
thanks, Ian.
difficult
It's
to be
very-
dealing with staffing issues,
Yep.
especially in a
Very
pandemic,
helpful.
and
It'll get better.
Environment's
It's right
tough.
now, it's a perfect storm with a lot of things that are outside our
Sure.
our ability to,
Yep.
when someone needs FMLA and for the right reason, they need it,
Yep.
When military deployments, we have a part-time officer that is going to be deployed likely for 9 months in February, and a full-time officer that we've been notified that will be deployed, I believe, in early summer or summer for at least 3 months.
Wow.
So those are, it's unexpected.
Yeah,
And it draws on the overtime and it draws on the officers.
Right,
But
absolutely. Yeah, okay.
we've got a good crew, so
Yeah.
we'll
Yes,
get it
indeed.
done.
No,
All
indeed.
right.
thanks a lot.
All right,
Jim.
thank you. And
Thank
thank you for
you.
all your recent interventions around town that we hear
Yes.
about secondhand,
Yes.
but it turned out to be quite effective in terms of the response time and
Great, thank you.
investigative work, from what I've heard. All right, thanks.
Thank you.
Okay, next and last report, Fire EMS, CMD, John Workman.
Yeah, hi, John Workman, Fire Chief.
Yep, I think we've seen you up here quite a bit. So we
Yeah,
probably have
boy, I
we
feel
have
like
a pretty good idea, so you can hit the highlights if you'd like.
Okay, all right, good. So, yes, I mean, I've been up here for some staffing challenges that we've had and some things that are going to be going on town meeting articles, just to hopefully take care of some of the staffing shortages that we've had, at least work on retaining and recruiting people in. The same as PD, there is challenges that the fire department is having, just with reductions of numbers of people that want to be on an ambulance. So there again, if anyone's listening that has interest in being on an EMT or paramedic, we have available openings. For current priorities, it has been the staffing. The other is working on grants, just because the town is seeing a lot of challenges, fiscal challenges. Just been working with Chris's help to identify grants, apply for them. We've gotten a couple. I just put in another grant for the SAFE, which is the Student Awareness of Fire Education. A lot of that grant is going to be used to offset some costs for individuals that will be sent. There's a 40-hour program that the Department of Fire Service puts on to train firefighters to be teachers in school. and it's a requirement of the grant to have folks in-house on the department in order to receive the grant. It is something that I've gone through. I have another firefighter who has gone through it and was the coordinator for that public education program. But he stepped back, so I'm trying to get a couple of the new folks in to step up, and we'll use some of the grant to put them through that training. So excited to have that come through. Ed had mentioned before just about costs associated with members on the roster, so I've reached out to Ed to try and get an idea of what those costs are, just because I do have a fair amount of folks that are on the roster that they don't work as much as they used to, or we might use them. There's one individual I can think of who has a horse farm. When we've had a couple of horse rescues, seems like you wouldn't necessarily hear of him so much, but we've brought him down from the second floor, doing a few things like that. And so it's nice to have him on the roster, because when we need him, he's a good, strong fellow that has helped us out in the past. And so if I do need to balance some of those costs over what it costs for us to keep him on, I would want to do that just to be fiscally responsible. So Ed will give me some help with that. And basic priorities are keeping everyone healthy and equipment functioning, everything functioning safely and efficiently. Budget spending status, mostly this town meeting article, which I'd spoke about last meeting. I feel like I'm losing track of time a bit. Personnel and staffing, it's the same issue. Next events for 4 to 6 months, really the public education, which I just mentioned. We do have an event like the Santa. We give him a ride to the station when he comes in town. And that's been a kind of a fun public event that we've done for a bunch of years. And we've got one of the women's groups that has offered to do some help. Usually it's my wife and other firefighters that are making stuff for folks when they get there, hot chocolate and just treats and things. So that's always fun.
Does Santa take a ride around town? Or?
Oh, well, he comes in on his sleigh, and he gets announced, and we pick him up with the truck and bring him in.
Very good.
Yeah.
We'll be looking forward to hearing all about that.
Yeah, it's a fun event. We are looking forward to, as the pandemic hopefully winds down. It's been a little bit frustrating as some of the numbers have come back up again, and those concerns are again keeping us wearing masks and social distancing. But we do hope to have some open houses and some things like that, so folks can really bring families down, see what kind of equipment we have, see the firefighters. We've got a great group of firefighters and EMTs that are really dedicated to the town. And I think they would benefit by getting a chance to meet with the public, and the public could benefit by meeting them. And of course, we always do some public education at those times as well. But that would be a springtime event. Let's see. We're in the midst of the state ambulance renewal. That usually happens in December. The state has been running behind, so I'm not sure if it'll happen in December or first part of January. They had been behind in a bunch of their stuff last year due to the COVID just pandemic and just what state workers were coming out to be to do those follow OEMS for them to come out and do their inspections. Had a great review last year. Look forward to a great review this year in regards to all the ambulance and all of its equipment. Our narcotics license has recently been updated. That's a whole nother application that's been submitted and received. There's some firefighter training programs that are out there. One is Hampshire County. It's basically 6 weekends that any of the firefighters that are part of the group can attend. It's a good opportunity just to get current working knowledge, just because the things that we do to fight fires, vehicle extrications, changes. And so it's also good to have exposure from another community, because every community has a different take on things. So when we send some of the new folks to these, like the Hampshire County, what they call the Hampshire 6, because it's 6 weekends, it's good information that they're learning there. It's good information that's coming back to the department. Years ago, I taught in that and chaired that, and it's just, it covers a lot of information that isn't covered in some of the fire academy, the Call Volunteer Fire Academy, just because it does like car fires and some other things that just aren't covered normally. They do have a Call Volunteer Fire Academy, which is basically it's also weekends. It runs about 3 months, and has a few nights, has some online portions to it. It's much more extensive. We don't pay any of the firefighters to attend, but I do give them an incentive if they complete that program, because it gives them national certification to firefighter 1, 2 levels. So they get a stipend if they do the Hampshire 6, and they get an additional stipend if they do the firefighter 1, 2 program. Just because the more training we have for these guys keeps them safer. They do a more effective, efficient job during an event, and it's just good for the town. Let's see, there is a state equipment grant that I'm trying to get done, trying to meet a deadline on. It's been a little tough because I've also been working the ambulance during some of the shortfalls, so it makes for a tough day when you're trying to get everything in. The SAFE grant is submitted. There are some FEMA grants out there. Just need to make sure that all the SAMs and all the nuns and all this stuff is up to date. And if I have enough time, and that really is a time management thing, just because there's so many other things that are vying for attention. The FEMA grants are good because there is the potential. One of the things that we talked about before is, and we'll probably have more conversations about, which is they have a SAFER grant, which in another department I was on, I had written a grant for probably almost $1 million. They're still offering, FEMA is still offering 100% reimbursement on that. And if we're looking for 2 additional firefighters, that would be an ideal source to really get them from. But it's a pretty involved grant. If I have some time, I'll definitely work at it, because we have a big need for it here.
Yeah, the FEMA grants are not easy, for sure. Yeah.
No, they're not.
The brick grant too is,
yeah.
we're in the window now, actually.
Yeah, we're in the window right now. That's right. But everything is in the window right now. So that's the challenge that I have. Probably, forecasting, and I don't know if I'm getting ahead of myself here, I probably am. We are going to be looking for additional staffing come spring. I imagine it'll be a town meeting vote to get that kind of thing. And we should probably talk about some sort of administrative assistant, just to really, because there's a lot of clerical work that is part of operations. And if I can have more of that done and more time for writing grants, that would be a positive monetary reward for the town. So that's it for grant stuff. Like already started into sort of long-term issues. And that's pretty much the 2 full-times that we are going to be looking for. Going to be needing some assistance again from Ed, just to get some of the, the unseen costs. Usually it's about a 33%. So if you pay someone a salary, which comes out of my budget, there's still a cost of the town, which is about 33%. And probably just need to solidify some of that, so we have a good proposal moving forward, and a good understanding what that looks like. Those kind of positions, they can certainly cover some of the EMS EMS shortages that we have. We can have some standard hours for them, because right now everyone's per diem. I know that not everyone understands that I'm the only full-time person over at the department, and it really is per diem workers that come in and it's their second job to cover. We have a great team, so I can't say enough about them, but just to say it to publicly again, so everyone understands that we are working, I don't want to say skeletal shift, but it's skeletal staffing, just to make it most cost effective. But I think our call numbers, we're at the same level of call numbers as we had for the entire year right now. Already went over it. So our numbers are up and continue to go up every year. So that's good, but certainly produces its own challenges.
Right. Okay.
Let's see. The tools are more just personnel stuff. The good news, we're still here and working hard. The pandemic is a little bit less, but still with us. We've done like DEP well monitoring, which we do for the Board of Health. It saves, they were paying $15,000 in engineering costs. It's pretty much just because you're paying an engineer to run a meter. Well, the folks in the fire department are pretty versed in meters, and so we took over that job for Board of Health at no charge. Actually, I think we traded it with DPW for trash bags because we didn't have to pay for trash bags. But we do that every year, and we've just completed that. I usually do it twice a year. Been a little less with the COVID, but we just completed the well monitoring. We're closing out the Commonwealth Security Trust Fund grant. That's for the skid unit, which is in. It's probably won't be using it in the winter, but it'll be available to us in the spring. And maybe we'll find a resource for the utility vehicle, UTV, but it can certainly be functional in the pickup truck that we have now, the utility pickup truck. We just had the Cub Scouts in, did a fun presentation with them, did first aid and fire safety. Great group, a lot of good kids. A lot of our firefighters had been part of that, just donating their time. I think everybody enjoyed it. It's good for both sides. And that's it for fire.
Okay.
I mean, it's kind of quick overview. Does anybody have any questions?
Pretty comprehensive, yep.
Yeah.
A few words about EMD, maybe?
Yes, so a few words about EMD. Basically, EMD, just, it's just working, most of that job, which is emergency management, is just good communication with all departments. And we've got great departments here. It's a pleasure to work with police department, DPW, and all the town departments. I put out an email just to see who was looking for what, because we do get a minimal grant, about $2,500 for a grant. In kind of weighing all the different things that came in, I did look at, we had written the grant is submitted, we're waiting for the contract to be signed and returned back to us before we can move forward with spending any money on it. But we're probably looking at some traffic, like barrier devices, cones, and some things that go between the cones to sort of, one of the challenges that we've had during some of the storms and road closures is just PD gets their resources, their personnel resources get utilized. They've got people out at all different roads. Fire department, DPW have all pitched in to try and keep road closures and people away from electric lines. But having more of these sort of barrier devices available for PD, FD, DPW will make it safer for people in town, give us more resources when we have those kind of large-scale events. And they can also be used for some, because now there's going to be, voting issues and the two precincts and just some of that dividing of people as they come in the door. So I think that was also one of the town clerk's concerns. So I think it'll address that concern as well. So once that grant comes in, we're looking forward to purchasing some of that equipment. Personnel, it's just me. Mostly it's the grant. Long-term planning is just the ongoing work that we're doing. Certainly been working with Chris in regards to the hazardous mitigation plan, and just hopefully we can get that moving, just in case there's any funding that might be able to come through for that. So active participation in that. Only resources we need is to additional time somehow, but we work with the time that we have. But the fact that we have been, the grant looks like it shouldn't be no problem that it'll be awarded. That's a positive. So that's really
Great.
synopsis of EMT. Any questions in regard to any of that?
I have a few questions. Thank you very much,
Sure.
Chief. We had meetings regularly during the pandemic and the heat of it to talk about how everybody's doing, working together and so forth, and we asked a lot. Plenty of PPE, all the staff are healthy, so is that very much the case?
Yes.
Plenty of PPE, everybody's healthy?
Just the fact that I didn't have to talk about that
Yeah.
is a wonderful thing.
I know.
Because yeah, we've really, we took advantage of every resource that we possibly could during the pandemic.
Yeah.
and had built up supplies in case it really had extended.
Great.
So a lot of it came from the state, a lot of it I'd resourced just
Got a
as
big
I.
chunk from FEMA too recently,
Yeah,
right?
yep. And also had found the distributor for like the masks, which was a really difficult one to get, the N95s.
Right.
And they're actually in Massachusetts, so I had a great resource for that.
That's good.
And then, so I think we've got some stockpiles.
Good.
I think some of the concern now is going to be actually expiration dates on some of this stuff. So
Yeah.
it hasn't been a focus only because I think we have plenty of stock now. And it doesn't make sense to get additional when it really does have an expiration to it. And we're going to have to look at it down the road and hopefully we remember the lessons that we've learned from this pandemic as we might come upon another.
Okay, another question. The AED out there, is
Yes.
that checked regularly?
Yes.
The battery checked and stuff? And it's
It's something
FD
that
does that, right?
Yeah, I send a group over. It's on a monthly schedule.
Monthly schedule?
Yeah, to go through it. We usually end up taking it out of budget to pay for batteries and such that go into it. The only real challenge would be, I mean, and they're probably $300-400. The batteries aren't cheap.
Right.
The only challenge we'd have is if we actually had to purchase another machine if it becomes obsolete, which they do, unfortunately. It's, I can't tell you exactly what level it's at now in status for replacement, but I know that it gets checked every month. And if you can ask the town clerk, because every time we check it, it sets off the alarm in her office.
Oh, okay. Are there people here that are trained in the use of it, or is it
I don't
pretty
know,
much
it's a
rely on the whoever's over there to come over?
Yeah, I would say probably rely. We had offered prior, pre-pandemic, CPR training to any town hall, anyone. We actually opened it up to the whole town just because, I mean, I was impressed when my 4-year-old, who's in a Northampton, my granddaughter, who was in a Northampton school, came home and learned CPR. I thought, boy, that's great, because really, if somebody just, pushes on a chest when somebody goes down, if they don't have a pulse, that makes a huge difference in outcomes for that person afterwards. And we've had, we do have a number of saves, positive saves, and mostly it's due to quick action of fire department early arrival and people on scene who have some knowledge of CPR, even if it's just pushing without trying to give them rescue breaths. So, yeah, we like I say, pre-pandemic, we really tried to open it up to the community, certainly to town hall. We did offer some courses. I think we paid for, maybe it was the rec department's CPR cards that they needed to have. So open to any ideas in regards to that.
I just want to make sure, I go by all the time, I want to make sure it's being checked.
No, great
And
question.
The last thing is, this is for both chiefs, actually. I'm just been worried all along about the road closure and such a major road in town. And with the use of mutual aid, Westfield and Easthampton, well aware. Is it down, is the construction meeting, did it get down the level as if there was an emergency at lower east, but the opposite side of the bridge, you would go this way versus that way? I mean, does that get handled at the level of dispatch when a call comes in, or is that already sort of mapped out?
It's mapped out with the routes that had come through.
Okay.
That is, the chief had done a great job just with his dispatchers to ensure that they know which numbers on which side of the bridge. The dispatchers are also advised as to give that information to any emergency responders that come through. If we get a mutual aid, say in Easthampton or Westfield, there is direct communication with dispatch, so that information is provided to them.
Okay.
And I can't speak for the chief, but I'm sure he, as I have done, have also made a point to really make sure that all of the members are aware that that road is closed, and we have a schedule for day and night schedules where it's written on there that that's closed, just as a reminder, until people get it second nature in their head that they can't go that way.
Okay, thanks.
So good questions.
Good information. Thank you. Thank you on that. Yep. Good.
Okay.
All right?
All right.
Anything else? All right. No,
Thank you all.
Much appreciated.
Thank you,
Thanks for
Jen.
coming. Very good. All right, folks. Well, once again, I think we've, benefited from having our folks here to present an overview of their departments, and it really does help us understand the bigger picture, I think, as we go through these meetings and hear from everybody directly. So thank you for coming and for presenting your information to us ahead of time as well. We'll move on to appointments and resignations. We have one resignation
I'll make a motion to approve the resignation of Brianna Eichstead, part-time police officer.
Okay. And
Second.
Second, all right. Any discussion, anything?
No, we have a letter from her.
Okay,
read her
we have a
letter.
letter in the packet, correct?
Yes.
Yep, okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, great. And then we have some reappointments to the Ad hoc Grant Committee.
How about if we handle those together, would that be
I think we
okay?
could.
All right, then I'll make a motion to approve. I think we were told that we don't need to approve Diana Fetterman's grant because she's a liaison.
To the open space.
Grant, not for open space. Okay, so Diana Fetterman, reappointment, Ad hoc Grants Committee, term to expire November 30th, 2022. And then Ed Gibson, reappointment, Ad hoc Grants Committee, term to expire November 30th, 2022. Caitlin Swistak Brooks, reappointment, Ad hoc Grants Committee, term to expire November 30th, 2022. And Christine Fowles, Ad hoc Grants Committee, term to expire November 30th, 2022.
Okay. Do we have a second?
I move to approve those reappointments to the Ad hoc Grant Committee.
Okay. And a second?
Second.
All right. All those in favor?
Aye.
All right, thank you. Next, we have a few appointments to the new Ad hoc Cost Efficiencies Committee. I think we can take all of these as well. These are Eliza Pluta from the school, Janet Kane, I believe, representing one of the clusters, Bradley Oskin, another of the clusters that we'd put together, and Ian Illingsworth. So there were 3 clusters of town employees that we had put together, and they had selected one member of their group to be the representative to the committee. All these terms will expire November 30th, 2022. So if I could have a motion for the appointment of those 4 people?
So moved. Term to expire November 30th, 2022.
Second discussion.
Yes, go ahead.
I'm just wondering if November 2022 is going to be here, and if the charge is a 5-year charge, maybe we ought to just give them 2 years out of the gate, lock them in, get out to 2023.
Did we say a 5-year charge?
Well, I mean, right, long range, and,
Well, true. Good point.
you know,
Well,
we start with a year, but.
Let's start with a year, since that's what everybody's expecting right
that
now.
was
I
the-
think.
yeah, I think that was the.
Yeah, yeah, it's an ad hoc committee, yeah.
Right.
So let's just start with the year like we did with the grant committee and some of these others, and then as we see some momentum here, we can always come back and readdress that and extend it. Okay. So, and just to say that we had expected, we are still hoping for 3 members of the public. Also, we had asked for somebody from the planning board and from finance. And I don't think we've had anybody yet. And I know everybody feels like their committees are already charged and don't have time to meet. And so, we'll do our best with whoever wants to volunteer. And we were hoping to have a couple of other folks from town, just people that are not on any of our committees or in our departments now with financial or HR background. And we thought we had a couple of interested people, but we haven't seen the paperwork yet. So if you're out there, please don't give up. Please write into us quickly. We would like to get one meeting started in December just to get the committee launched before the end of the year. Okay, John?
Along those lines, it might make sense to do a 1-pager and include it for handout on December 14th at the special
Good
town
idea.
meeting.
Yeah, we could do that.
You know,
I mean, we've
if
had
they
it-
have, I know,
Yeah, I mean, we put it in various places. I know it's been in Robert's newsletter, it's been up on our website.
but have the front be the description and the back be the
Yeah.
application, and accept it on the spot.
There you go.
Easy.
Catch them right there. Okay, so anyway, just to say that we're getting closer to actually getting the committee formed, and the intent is to get one meeting done sometime before the end of the year, just to get it launched, okay? All right, so with that in mind, could I have a motion on the table in a second? Could I have a vote, please? All those in favor?
Aye.
All right, thank you. All right. Next up is the town administrator report, please, Ed.
Sure. Updates, and first, would the select board allow the town employees for the town hall and library to leave work early tomorrow, Wednesday, the day before Thanksgiving at 1 p.m.? This would mean the town hall and library would close at 1 p.m. on November 24th.
I
Is
think
that the same as last year?
What time's the school close?
I don't recall what last year was. I think it is the same, but I am not positive.
Yeah, I think we've done that before. I can't remember if it was for Christmas or.
I know we've done it
Thanksgiving.
for Christmas and New Year's, but I can't exactly recall what we've done
Yeah.
on Thanksgiving.
Right. Any comments or thoughts about that? I have no reason to say no. I'm in
No.
favor of that.
Okay, I'll move that we close town hall at 1 tomorrow for
And the library.
Thanksgiving,
Library.
And the
November
library.
24th.
I'll second.
Okay. So motion on the table. Any discussion here? Okay. All right. All those in favor of closing both town hall and the library tomorrow at 1 o'clock for the Thanksgiving holiday? Please say aye.
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 All right. Thank you. And go
All
ahead.
right. Stan, thank you very much. I know the employees will appreciate that. And Stan Tech has reviewed Gallagher Enterprises bid submittal for the new sidewalk on College Highway between Pomeroy Meadow Road and High Street and has found everything to be in place and acceptable. Stan Tech is trying to schedule an on-site pre-construction meeting for us, Gallagher, and Mass DOT at the beginning of next week. Vicki Morrow has started working with Bradley Oxon, town accountant, to complete the forms necessary for our town fiscal year 2022 tax recap submittals to the Department of Revenue. And excuse me, state annual elevator inspection for the town hall was conducted last Thursday, November 18th. Everything was good with this inspection, and we have been issued our new elevator inspection certificate, which is good until August of 2022. The annual audit of payroll for our workers' compensation has been completed. And then just a reminder to everyone that the assessor's office is open on Mondays from 9 a.m. to 2:30 p.m., Tuesdays from 9 a.m. to noon, and also on Wednesdays from 9 a.m. to 2:30 p.m., while they are looking to fill the full-time principal assessor vacancy. The temporary part-time principal assessor, David Zagorski, has started working in the office. Upcoming select board meetings, December 7th and 21st, and special town meeting December 14th at 7 p.m. at Norris Elementary School.
Anyone have questions? Yes, go ahead, John.
I'd like to make a motion to move to, motion to reconsider a previous act. I'd like to revisit the vote we just took to close the town hall and library, if I may.
Okay.
I think it has to be seconded.
Do you want, okay, let's have a second, and then we can have a little
All
discussion.
right, I'll
Yes?
second it.
All right.
It was oversight, I thought of this afterwards, but why, is there a reason why we're explicitly precluding the highway department? Seems like that will be the only non-essential department that will stay open. Schools are closing half-day, town hall's closing, library's closing. I'm just wondering,
Only thing about the highway department I would caution you on is the transfer station is open tomorrow till 5 p.m.
It is. And that's the only reason why?
Well, you could do the highway department and leave the transfer station open, I suppose, but
And, okay, and what do we do for the other early closures, like Christmas, New Year's? Same thing?
basically the same thing.
Yeah.
doesn't quite seem equitable, but I guess.
Well, like I say, the only issue is I would not, the day before, close the transfer station early. So if you wanted to
Transfer
close.
station, I understand.
Okay, so if you wanted to close the highway
Yeah.
department at 1, I'd be fine with that.
All right.
Are we in a period of time where Randall's on vacation?
Yes, we are.
Yeah, okay, okay. And I just heard, sorry, Joan, I just heard you say the Council on Aging is open until 3?
We already planned bingo. You can't mess with bingo.
Okay. Up to you.
All right.
All right, so do we want to amend that motion to include the Highway Department? Or what's anybody else think?
I'd like to make it at Randall's discretion.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we could just mention that it could be up to Randall.
I don't have any objection to that, to allow the highway superintendent and/or his designee to make the decision.
Make the decision.
Well, the highway superintendent's on vacation, so he will not have any discretion.
Right, but isn't there a foreman who's acting in his place?
No, Ed is.
No, there should be a
No,
foreman.
there's a foreman.
Yeah, there should be a foreman, yeah.
That's why I said, or his
His
designee,
designee.
who's ever
Yeah.
acting in his stay.
Well, has he left the planet? I mean, can you chime in?
Well, last post, he was in Area 51.
I don't know, you know better than us, Ed, tell us
I
what
mean,
you'd like.
and if we're making this more complicated than it needs to be, I'm willing to withdraw it. I just would like consideration for all departments going forward. It's just,
Yeah.
you know, that's it. So I get it.
Then I'd also consider the water department.
Well, I don't, I
Well-
think historically, I think, police, fire, highway have always been
there's-
considered sort of an
Police, fire, I get,
emergency
that's
management
that's
side.
public safety, that's frontline, there's difference,
Right.
there's different rules apply there. Water department is enterprise fund, and yes, they come to us for that, but they, and frankly, I'm surprised we're voting on the library, but I'll get off my soapbox. and let the committee decide what they wanna do.
Okay, what are we doing, guys? What would you like to do? Do I hear a motion for anything here, or are we staying with what we said? John's made the point about equity. Do we want to revise the motion, amend the motion?
I like the, I know Randall's on vacation, if his designee, if we're okay,
So would you
authorizing
like to
that
make a motion to
individual.
that effect?
Yes. So I make a motion that we extend the early closure to the highway department dependent on the decision of the highway superintendent's designee,
But the
with the exception of the transfer station.
Second.
Okay, any further discussion? All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right. Okay. Moving on, some select board reports, if
Can
we
I ask
could.
about the,
Yes.
I'm sorry, can I
Yes.
just ask about the dates again?
Yep.
Right now, do we have a meeting next Tuesday? We don't know yet.
Yes, we do.
We have an executive session,
Okay,
probably.
executive session.
Executive session for negotiations.
All right, and then the following meeting is the 7th,
Correct.
and then we have, the following week is the special town meeting.
Right, the
Correct.
14th.
So we don't have extra meetings before that. And then we have a meeting, if needed, on the 21st, is what I have.
And I'm sure you'll need it because I'm sure there'll be licenses that need to be approved.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay, I want to make sure I have it all. Thank you.
Okay, so select board reports. How about, Joy, you want to start? Hopefully
Sure.
we can get through these pretty quickly.
I will be quick, because I also don't have my notes. Conservation Commission met. I don't think there's anything new to report from them, besides they still need volunteers, of course. I left that meeting early, actually, and I didn't hear back from the chair if there was any other information that needed to be reported. In regards to open space, they discussed the 61A refusal that we'll be discussing later, and I can report further details on that then. But ultimately, they waived the right. And Housing Authority met. They also discussed the 61A and the past community meeting for the housing production plan that took place last Thursday, which was not as well attended, but there's a lot of community engagement, and really exciting to see citizens take an interest in affordable housing in the town. And planning board, I don't believe there was a meeting, so that's all I have.
Okay, good. Reading?
Yep, you heard from the Public Safety Building Committee report tonight, and we'll address the charge and composition at one of our next meetings. CPC has not met, but there are 3 articles on the warrant that will be addressing funds from CPC. Really good news, though, 2022, the CPA expected match is supposed to be 100%, which the last couple of years was 70%, and we haven't been at 100% match from the state since 2014. So if all goes well, we'll be able to realize a 100% match on CPC funds. A lot going on in COA. The Memory Cafe had its first program October 21st, 19 people in attendance, including volunteers, and the Golden Moments Adult Day Spa program. Joan and also Lori Lozelle said it was the most rewarding and memorable event that they've been participated in since they've been here. There are a couple more memory cafes scheduled, November 18th. There was December 16th, January 20th, and February 17th, March 24th, and April 21st. We're going to hear from Joan shortly about the program coordinator job description. We had a second meeting of just an informal meeting about the donation from David Parsons and the requirement of a design/plan for senior center within a year and a half's time. So we're looking at other senior centers, and there may be a request coming in front of the select board for an ad hoc committee for the senior center building committee. Good Eats to Go, folks were able to pick up meals last week on the 17th and 18th, and the next meeting is next Wednesday. The Board of Assessors met on the 16th. We're going to see PCFs here, I thought we were, for Janine Domina to extend her 12-week interim assessor position, and also David Zagorski, the interim, for another 12 weeks, and they're still recruiting a principal assessor, and there was a request for the job description to be posted on Indeed. They've been looking through a list of parcels, exempt parcels, and their next meeting is next Monday at 4 o'clock. That's it.
Okay, very good, thanks. Francine?
Okay, I have very little to report. On November 10th, the feasibility, the HR Regional Feasibility Group funded through the PVPC met, and again reviewed the request for quotes that will be going out to hire a consultant to conduct the interviews with each of the 5 towns who participate in this grant to determine what our human resource needs might be and how they might construct a kind of an à la carte menu of services that small towns like Southampton could purchase on an as-needed basis. There was a Norris School Committee meeting took place on November 10th. Unfortunately, I was not able to attend. The ZBA has not met, and the bylaw ad hoc review committee isn't meeting again until December 11th. That's it.
Okay. John?
Capital has not met, finance has not met, and PPQB, through a miscommunication, did not meet. And that committee, and I know it's going to come up later, is going to look to meet the week after Thanksgiving. So when we get to it, we should probably take no action on all the PCF and PRF items until the committee meets.
Okay. All right, so they had intended to meet but did not meet, okay.
There was a miscommunication about it.
Okay, all right, understood, okay. All right, and just jumping onto the ad hoc grant committee, we had a meeting this past week. Chief Workman was able to attend, and also Aaron Tauscher, the head of the Greenway Committee. We started talking about both some Mass Trails grant to start with, looking at that for some design work for the for the Greenway, for the bike path, and then started talking about the update of the hazard mitigation plan with the chief and various grant sources that are out there to do that. We are still waiting for PVPC to get back to us. They had some ideas of where we could also apply that would be fairly, shall I say, simple grants, not overly cumbersome grants for the amount of work that we want to get done. So we're hoping to have another meeting probably December 2nd to have an update on that and get going on a couple of these applications. There's a couple of webinars coming up on various grant opportunities in Massachusetts in early December, and a couple of us will be attending that just to hear what's going on. It's kind of a broad spectrum, not just conservation or anything like that. It's multiple types of grants that are open, so we're going to be working on that and trying to nail down especially the hazard mitigation plan first and foremost, that update, and then anything to do with the municipal vulnerability plan, so the MVP plan that everyone who participated in had some ideas on, and it's posted actually up on our website. If you haven't had a chance to look at the MVP plan, it's under the documents section, and that is something that we would be working from as well to see what would be a next actual physical project that would come out of the MVP plan. Okay, so those are the things that we'll be focusing on over the next month, probably. All right, thanks. So with that, we'll jump into old business. Ed, how about an update on the audit outstanding issues, please?
They are the same as we went over at the last meeting.
Mm-hmm. No progress on them yet?
No, not yet. Not till after we finish the warrant for the ATM.
Okay. Any comments back from the auditors? Are they chomping at the bit for us? Are they being patient with us, or?
The auditors are the scope of the work for the fiscal year '21 close.
No, but I mean, to finish the audit question, and are the auditors
been-
themselves, or?
They've been fairly quiet, so.
Okay, all right, well,
And once we get through tonight and that's approved, should be able to get back onto the questions that they have and respond to them next week again.
yeah. And I think you said that Bradley could help you with a couple of these things in research and so forth, is that right?
Yes.
Okay, well, if there's anything that any of us can do, please just let us know.
Will do.
Next is the contract scope of work. We had put out a scope of work for basically the closing out and review and closing out of FY '21 financials. And we had, I think, requested, or put out the information of 3 different entities. And what do we have for responses, Ed?
Melanson has responded, and you have that in your packages. I didn't get a response from the emails I had sent to Eric Kinshirf, but I was able to get in touch with him on the phone. His company's extremely busy, and he said that wouldn't be able to start any new work till the beginning of January, and I told him I thought that that would probably work for us, so he is supposed to send us out a proposal for that. And then the third entity, she had, actually right after I had reached out to them, she had asked me to, for some dates and times to set up a time we could talk, because she had some questions. I sent her some dates and times, did not hear back. I responded via email again, did not hear back, and I've left her a voicemail and haven't heard anything back as of yet.
Okay. So at this point in time, we have one and possibly a second interested party to
Yes.
do this closeout. Now, if we had to wait until we get this bidding, or we get the second proposal, obviously, but if somebody couldn't start until January, what are the downsides of that? Do we have penalties? Do we have problems by waiting to do the closeout?
Shouldn't. Schedule A, really the drop dead date to get penalized is the end of January, so they should be able to do that for us. Because of the fact that we're having the special town meeting in December rather than February, there's no rush at this point in time to get free cash certified, so in my opinion, I think we should be good.
So the only urgent thing, if I'm understanding though, is the tax recap, which is already in process.
Which
Is that
Vicki
right?
Morrow is working on, along with Bradley.
And that's expected to be completed by the end of November, is that right?
Yes.
But what about the article for the warrant?
The article for the warrant.
Isn't there an article for the warrant that funds the,
I would probably suggest plugging the minimum dollar amount in it that Melanson had given us.
the minimum?
The minimum, yes.
$35,000.
35, right?
35, correct.
Right.
Why the minimum?
They really won't know till they get in here. You know, so my opinion on that is that look to get the minimum approved, and we'll work, you know, towards that. And, you know, if something falls off that it can't be done, maybe between Bradley working with Vicki and working with a vendor to do that, that hopefully our accounting office can pick up anything that falls off.
Okay.
Okay. So at this point in time, we would not be ready to make any kind of decision about the closing out of FY '21. Your recommendation is that we wait for the second interested party to submit a bid?
Yes,
Okay, or submit a proposal, rather.
correct.
Okay, all right, so hopefully we'll see that within the next couple weeks. Maybe we'll have it for the next
For our
meeting.
next regular meeting,
Yeah.
yeah, which would be the 7th.
Okay. Any comments, thoughts? Yeah, John?
No, I mean, and I know we told Ed this was, you know, to be updated in December, but even if we wanted to make an award, we really can't, right? Because we don't have a funding source until after the town meeting.
Right.
Right.
So,
Right. What kind of-
okay.
It was just helpful to know an amount for the town meeting,
Right, yeah.
from
And
more
so-
than one source.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly, yeah. I mean, I like the idea of having at least a comparative proposal, rather than just taking one that has been talking to us so far. So hopefully we'll get something that can fall within that reasonable range. We'll see. All right, if no further comments on those issues, all right, then let's move on to East Street Bridge and what's happening down there, besides
Big crane.
lots of work.
They're busy, finishing the gas work, getting ready to take the water main off the bridge. They have moved in the barriers. The bridge was closed earlier this week. The electronic signs on College Highway will stay up until sometime next week, and then those will be removed. So, work's starting to happen. The demolition will probably not start for about actual demolition probably for not another 10 days or so, but.
Okay. Great. All right. Any other comments? No? All right. All right, we are finally at new business, and the first one up is Council on Aging. Joan, please, join us. Thank you for being patient and being here all this time.
Good evening, Joan Linehan, Council on Aging Director. I know this consideration is a little odd for the mid-fiscal year, but we have an opening, a vacancy in the Council on Aging as of the end of September, and we have met with our liaisons and our town administrator and our board chair, and we will feel it's an opportunity to expand the position and make, instead of an administrative assistant, we would have a Council on Aging program coordinator. This position would have to go through PPB to get scored, so we're not sure of what the cost would be exactly, but we're looking at 14 hours versus 10 hours, so it'll give more hours. We have, as Maureen had said, a wonderful memory cafe that the Grant Ad Hoc Committee helped us to acquire, and it gives us an extra almost $8,000 a year, so the position would be paid through three sources. The administrative assistant was paid through our wage line, 7 hours of her position, and then 3 hours from the formula grant. And so now we're looking at using also the Highland Valley grant as well to pay for this. You have the copy of the job description, and a lot of the work is what we've been doing, our administrative assistant was doing, but we'll be working more with the program for the Memory Cafe, having a lot of media and marketing, trying to get more awareness to our own community and what the Council on Aging has to offer. It would, again, extra time and extra energy in the right position, and we have the funding for it, so it would not come to any extra funding from the town.
This would all be internally funded from the grant, so nothing even from a wage line at this point in time?
No, whatever's in the budget for this year.
There is partially, okay. All right, okay. So this would give you yourself, a program coordinator, and then the volunteer
Coordinator is her position, volunteer coordinator.
drivers?
And she does just 5 hours a week, but she's been our longest staff member and brings so much to the table, so.
Yep. Could you talk a little bit about the qualifications that you're looking for somebody, just?
So we had said education experience would be an associate's degree, either in gerontology, human services, social work, or a related field, or 1 to 3 years relevant experience working with the senior population, plus related work experience in an office environment. We do a lot with the Frida bus. Our transportation is one of our major programs, so any skills that people bring to the table, computer skills and working with the public would be greatly appreciated.
The person in the position before was administrative assistant who actually did a tremendous amount of program coordination, the newsletter, the van service and all that. So it's really an opportunity to improve and increase program coordination, development, outreach. So I think it's a really good idea. I think it's really needed.
I mean, it sounds like partially you're actually taking some of what the other person had done and trying to sort of
Expand on
right-size
it.
the
It
position.
absolutely has to be, because that's what the daily work is to get the transportation out, the newsletter, you know, and work with the publics.
And various other programming that you want to do. I mean, I know you've got various guest speakers and classes and things that happen, and maybe you've got a chance to broaden that horizon.
Well, we hope to. I know during the pandemic, everything had kind of shut down, and our friends group used to meet monthly for their luncheons, and when that starts up again, we'll be able to get more speakers and maybe, you know, more. We did have a couple evening programs with, you know, to help with education and awareness.
Right. With the changing in the census and so forth, do we have a sense of how much our senior population is growing in town?
So we're about a third of the population. I think our population's over 6,000, and 2,000 or more are the seniors, which has grown, you know, several hundred from the 10-year census.
And this is people over 65 and over, is that right? Is that
Well, I don't have the specifics. I think they do 60 and over, but
60 and over? Okay. 2,000, huh? That's
It was about 1 out of 5.
Yeah, okay. Other questions, thoughts, yeah? Anybody? So, I mean, my understanding is that you want to just, because the Council on Aging reports to the town administrator and to the board, essentially, you're kind of looking for our general okay with this notion of moving forward, but it's still got to go to PQB.
Absolutely.
We're not taking any real action on this. It has to go to PQB to be scored as a brand-new position, is that right?
that's correct.
Okay, all right. So any comments, thoughts about that?
No, I think it's a great idea. I mean, I don't know in total how many of the seniors in town take advantage of the services of the senior center, but it's certainly not at the 2,000 level. And I really think, as we heard a little bit from the police chief, there are people who are out there that we don't know unless they come here, and we need to find a way to be in touch with some of those folks and finding out what their situation is. And through, you know, a relationship between the police department and the COA, we may be able to, you know, extend some very important assistance to people who are living at home and really not able to come here.
We get an average of 100 calls a month, and when I do my report next month, I'll put into detail what kind of things that we're looking for. And you're right, we're here when they need us. They don't always need us, but we're glad to be here when they do.
Yeah. I'm assuming, and maybe I'm wrong, is it the administrative person who left, or is it your volunteer coordinator that kind of does the outreach activities now, or?
No, the administrative coordinator, the administrative assistant who left, she was on Tuesdays and Wednesdays, and she did most of the scheduling for the van, and the volunteer coordinator does more with RSVP and does, you know, extra work, but she's only here Monday and Thursday morning, so just adding the 4 extra hours is going to be beneficial to the department.
Mhm. And you said you're going from 10 to 14 is what you're proposing?
Correct.
Yeah, it seems, I know, I've been working with a senior or two in town, and just to have that regular contact when they have no other family around, and just making a phone call or checking in on them, it really completely changes their day. So I certainly would be in favor of increasing whatever we can do for that kind of level of contact at a minimum, to do more outreach in that regard. I do agree with you that there's probably people out there that we have no clue. Either they don't know that much about the senior center and what services
Right.
they could benefit from, whether they be townwide or statewide or countywide. And, you know, there's got to be a way to sort of bridge that gap a little bit. So maybe this is one way to do that.
I know the
this
care-
person, that would be their responsibility, would be.
Yeah.
making
Yes,
people
along with
aware
myself, but
of the COA.
Sure. Yeah.
the CARES grant did allow us to send out a few mass mailings, and we got a lot of new people that didn't even know, you know, what we had to offer. So we did get a lot of phone calls this past month after sending out the November mailing.
Okay, good. All right. Do we need to take any kind of action on this? I don't think we do.
I don't think so, no.
I think I sense that we're generally favorable to the notion.
Thank you for your time, and
Okay.
happy
Thank you,
Thanksgiving, everyone.
Happy Thanksgiving, Joan.
Appreciate it, thank you. Okay, any COVID-19 update, Ed? Anything there?
No, the numbers are starting to rise again, but, you know, other than that, you know, the state and the federal government is pushing individuals that haven't been vaccinated to hopefully get vaccinated, and encouraging individuals that are eligible for, it's been 6 months since either their COVID or Pfizer shots, to get boosters, and I think it's actually as short as 2 months if you've got a Johnson & Johnson that they're
That's good. Oh, that's great. You're right.
asking for boosters, yeah.
There's plenty of vaccines available either through the drugstores or Northampton Health Department. Been trying to do a vaccine clinic once a week. And there's plenty of appointments, plenty of vaccines, so please consider getting vaccinated. And with the holiday coming up, really, really appeal to people to do all the things you're supposed to do, social distance, wear a mask, wash your hands, all of that. Last year, if you remember, it was Thanksgiving, after Thanksgiving, that caused a huge increase in towns, so let's not have that happen.
Right, okay. All right. How about CARES Act update? I know we were still waiting to hear from the state about the last tranche of money.
We are, of the 12,000 and some change that we had asked to have approved for spending, they had approved like 6,100, and they had denied roughly 5,900. And I have pleaded a case that I didn't understand why they were actually denying something that was previously eligible for, so I've sent them my rationalization, and I'm just waiting to hear back from the state on if they now agree with my rationalization.
Okay. Now, a large part of what I remember us agreeing to in terms of how that money could be spent, the remainder, not only the 12,000 that was still in the kitty that we hadn't received yet, but what we had said was our quote-unquote surplus, a large part of that was going to the school. So has the school been able to start, do they know that they can start using some of that? We're not.
Let Bobby Jones know that at least for the fiscal year '21, that monies that they were looking for to get to a net zero balance, that go ahead and proceed with that. In the fiscal year '22, you know, we just had basically $6,000 roughly that we were not sure of. So, you know, go ahead and move that. And I told her I'd let her know as soon as I did. I also let her know that the other $6,000 that John had emailed her about was a separate $6,000, and that was probably going to become available for the school's use also.
That was the money that the housing authority decided they could not use?
Decided that they were not going to be able to utilize before the end of December.
Before the end of the year, right. Okay. So in other words, we're not holding up, by this delayed thing from the state, we're not holding up the school from taking action on what they said they needed to do. Okay, I just wanted to be sure of that. Okay, any other comments on that? Okay, let's move to the revenue and expenditures 22, an update.
Yeah, and you've got a new revenue and a new expenditure report in your packets, which is up through, I believe it's last Thursday.
Yeah. Now, the revenue report from early November had gone up to the end of June. This one goes to the end of August, so we're catching up. A couple more months to go on the revenue report.
Yeah, there's still some small packets of some, I think, July and August, like interest and things that haven't been posted, but the majority of the revenues have for July and August.
Ed, what's the story on the dog control line?
Dog control line?
No, it's page 8 on the expense report. It's budgeted for 182, and we've spent 3,600. Is that a mistake?
That can't be right.
That's a revolving account, and as the revolving accounts go, it has not had the beginning balance, which would have been the ending balance of 21 brought forward yet.
Oh, okay. That's where the dog licenses go to, or the?
It's where the dog licenses go to and the expenditures would come out of, yes.
Okay. Just, well, if we can get to the revenue in a minute, just one thought I had on the, looking at the expense report. I hate to suggest yet another article, but I'm going to bring this up because if you look at the very first page, third or fourth line down on webpage maintenance, we've only got $432 left to keep our website updated. And here we are, November. The amount left is going to get us about 2 to 3 hours worth of work. I really think we should also consider transferring some money from the IT expenses account or something to this webpage maintenance line. I mean, I don't see how the webpage is not going to be updated. If we can't do anything beyond December with no money to update it, we should take advantage of the town meeting ability to transfer funds if we want to do that. I mean, we've had 2160 budgeted, 1728 already spent, just with various reports and things we're trying to do to keep people updated on the website. This isn't going to get us very far with the
Do we have a
balance.
contract for web maintenance?
Yes, we do.
And how long does it go till?
It'll go to June 30th of next year, of 2022.
That would be good to be looked at anyway, but I agree then, I guess, because we're gonna have to keep things updated. Doesn't seem like it gives us, we have money in the IT line to move over, or is that committed?
No, my suggestion would be, and the chair and I spoke about this, of looking to transfer suggested $1,500, and I'd probably recommend taking it from technology services.
Which is down toward the bottom of that page. There's still 8,000 left there, 8,500. Bottom of the first page.
8,500, yeah.
No, I'm surprised it's not under there in the first place. Right? But, whatever, I support that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think.
Would
that
anybody
be-
sort of agree with that idea? I mean, it just feels like this is a line that is something that's got to be more actively kept up, and I just don't see how that's going to happen.
But, I mean, even $1,500 isn't going to make
Well, I mean, it was
not
just,
sufficient for the rest of the year.
yeah, it's just an arbitrary
If you
amount,
could take,
frankly.
if there's a possibility of taking more, like 3,000, then we wouldn't be coming back to the,
Well,
Well, I think we have to go back out and evaluate what the cost of,
Yeah.
the
Yeah,
annual web
and
maintenance.
my
We can-
hope is
I don't think it makes sense to dump a
by
lot
the
of
next
money.
fiscal year that we have found and utilized, hopefully, ARPA funds to convert our,
well,
yeah,
good,
do some
okay.
web page
Website.
design and
That would be
updating in
good.
general.
That
I'm
would
all
be
for
good.
that.
Yeah,
Okay,
I would, yeah.
all right, so let's keep it at the 15, then that makes sense if we have that other source.
Could we have a motion to that effect, then?
Okay, I move that we transfer $1,500 from technology services to web page management for the remainder of the fiscal year.
All right, could I have a second?
I'll
Second.
it. It's maintenance, but.
Yeah, web page maintenance, right, okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
John, did I hear you?
Aye. Yep,
Okay, thank you.
sorry.
All right. So, sorry, Ed, but that's going to be another article, I guess.
okay, when you look through your draft, you'll see that there's a note in there about that one.
Oh, is there? Okay,
yeah.
fine. All right, any other comments about the expenditure report in general?
Yeah, I'm on page 13 and 14. So it looks like it wasn't brought over. It just says what we expended and what the percentage, and it doesn't make any sense.
Right.
Yeah, I think these all have to do with the previous year's balance, right, for the enterprise funds?
Right, but you don't have expended of 100% when it's only a fraction of what should have been expended. You know what I mean?
Because you don't know what was in there.
So it's not really 100% when you're only expended
Right.
a fraction of the salary and the rest of the
Right.
things, so.
And that may be, I don't know if this is just the way our software program presents itself,
Yes.
is that our? I mean, it's
No, it may be that the enterprise, I'm looking for the transfer station enterprise fund. It may be that the enterprise fund budgets have not been entered yet.
Well, just helpful to compare.
Yeah.
And where we are percentage-wise, if those get filled in.
Right. Yeah, for both transfer
And water.
and water both, yeah. That's the page 13 and 14, yeah, good point.
And the same thing for the, all the indirect, Medicare, health insurance. None of it's done. It's just erroneous to say that the percent expended 100% when it's only a fraction of the total.
What's that?
Page 16 as well is missing the previous years, the budget revisions. I mean, all it is what's expended, and it says 100%, which isn't accurate.
Yeah, those are all part of that fiscal '21 close, to bring those over.
Okay, okay. All righty.
Okay. And then what about anybody else on the revenue report? What we have here looks like a list of all the transactions in terms of the various,
Taxes, everything.
yeah, everything from taxes to all sorts of things here, but
I don't
looking at,
exactly know what it means, but,
well, it's kind of, I mean, it's good to
Yeah.
see that we're able to get all the transactions here, but we still need to be able to put that,
It means I put the wrong parameters into the revenue report,
Yeah.
so I'll redo that and send it out.
so we need to just juxtapose what's been actual revenue against what was
Right.
anticipated, so that it's
Right.
just a little bit clearer. But just a note, for all the different kinds of taxes, for example, so people know what we're talking about,
Yeah.
property tax, so personal property tax,
Excise tax.
excise, real estate, supplemental rollback, all that whole bunch of tax stuff. Right now, we've collected apparently $3,579,496.67. So looks like our taxes are coming in. We've done various other revenues that are in here, from building permits to plumbing inspections and things like that. Some of the grant money is in here. So yeah, I think if we can see that more clearly in terms of not only these revenue deposits, if you will, but how
Yeah,
that,
this is the detail report.
yeah, how that compares
Rather
to
than the
the,
summary report.
Yeah.
That's my fault.
how that compares to the original.
Is there ever a hope where we will see revenue and expense on the same piece of paper and the balance?
No.
Not with our current software, at least.
I mean,
at least you can get revenue reports that are meaningful
Yeah.
at some point.
Yeah, no, we have to. But I think one of the things that we've been talking about, and maybe this will come out in our new CE, Cost Efficiency Committee, we've been talking about looking at, and I think Jen mentioned it, I know it's been on Ed's mind, about looking for different software that's more appropriate, that is less, what's the word? Less hands-on in terms of having to touch the same piece of paper or the same transaction
Right.
5 different times. So I think there are ways out there to work on that. Whether that still will generate a report that you're talking about, Francine, I'm not sure, but at least we have in mind that we want to get towards some better software that meets our needs to better understand our own
just trying to
finances.
find the same category match it up from this expense report to the
Right.
revenue report.
Yeah, no, and I think if this were
Those
not in
categories
detail-
would not line up, I'm sorry.
I understand that.
Yeah, if it were a summary report, it would be a little bit easier to read, so that's fine. But it is interesting to see the level of transactions here that we do note, so, okay. Any other comments on that? If not, we'll keep on moving. I don't think we need to say anything more about the Cost Efficiency Committee. We've talked about it. We've already appointed people, just to say that we're hoping to have a couple more names come toward us. And if the Finance Committee in particular, or Planning, has somebody that they would like to recommend. If not, I think we're not going to hold up the committee until we get everybody. We have to make a decision and move forward at some point in time. So
I think that's a good idea.
I think, we will start with who we can, and if we don't have a full committee like we'd hoped to for the 12 people, we'll do the best we can and get started, and maybe that will create some level of motivation for other people to join us.
Agreed.
All right, moving forward, the next thing is the right of first refusal, map 29, lot 65, MGL 61A. I believe we have that information in our packet. Ed, you want to speak to that?
To date, we've heard back from the Planning Board, the Board of Assessors, Conservation, and Open Space met on it last week, and those 4 committees that I'm aware of,
Housing.
I have not received anything from Housing, so I cannot speak to Housing. But the 4 committees that I just mentioned voted to waive the right of first refusal.
So assessors, open space, planning, and
Conservation and
Concom.
planning.
And Concom, okay.
And all of them, except for, I think, assessors, deferred to Housing Authority in their motions.
And Housing Authority vote?
They did, last Thursday, before their community meeting to waive,
To waive it?
to waive it, yes.
So we just haven't received
Yeah,
that?
but I guess you haven't received that in writing, so I
have
will,
not.
I'll reach out to them to let them know. I did not know that.
So, just to know, so for people who may be listening to this, this is for land that is coming out of Chapter 61A. It's on High Street, 20.36.
East Street.
East Street.
Sorry, East Street, sorry. East Street. It's on 20.36 acres. And the town, when it comes out of chapter, the town has the time to do a right of first refusal. And sounds like so far that is not going to be exercised. Do we wait till you officially hear, or do we just move on?
If Joy was
think
in
the main-
I
attendance.
mean, yeah,
The
if you
main,
want
the
me to.
main groups that
As
have
long-
had to be
yeah.
notified
As
by
long-
the
as long
state
as-
letter are the
yeah.
assessors and Concom and planning.
Right.
And they, I think it's been a courtesy that we've included housing and open space, but from what we've heard, they've also passed on the idea of trying to hang on to this property for various uses. And therefore,
And with that information, I'd probably recommend the Select Board vote on the right of first
Okay.
refusal, so we can notify the attorney and
correct.
the potential
All right.
purchaser.
So Joy, since you're the representative on several committees, would you like to make a motion, please?
Sure, I will make a motion for the select board to waive the right of first refusal on the property located at map 29, lot 65.
Okay, can I have a second?
I'll second.
Okay. Any further discussion? All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay.
I will send a letter to the attorney. Thank
All
you.
right, thank you. And take care of that. And I guess, Ryan, if that was part of what you were hoping to hear tonight, that's your answer.
I don't know how you could have guessed that. Thank you.
You're so patiently waiting here.
You will see, I think you'll see me more. This is definitely something I'm missing out to.
I'm glad we're so much a source of entertainment here, but that's good. All right, next one is the Charter Spectrum Coverage Map. We have this interesting map that we've been asking for. So Ed, do you want to give us a little clue as to what this really tells us here?
Yeah, and basically, the electronic version, which I sent you, is much easier to understand because I don't have a color printer. But if you actually look at it in color, the areas, the roads in the areas that do not have Charter Spectrum coverage are in red.
Okay. Can you, does anybody have it pulled up on their computer offhand?
I do, yeah.
Where are they sort of?
They're mostly far out on the, actually, I guess that would be what, Montgomery end? So Crooked Ledge, and then most of the streets that are on the far end of town there. And then there's little breaks here and there. That's what my questions.
It didn't seem like there were houses, like where those.
Oh, really?
Well, I'm just saying where those breaks are. I didn't take this map and superimpose it over a town map. It's just,
Oh, interesting.
all of a sudden, you're up on a bend on Crooked Ledge Road, and my memory is
Oh,
there's
there
no
are
houses
houses
right
up
there.
there.
There's
Yeah,
a
there's-
section, I think, over in Glendale on a curve,
Chief, do you know that?
without seeing the map.
Want to look at this?
Yeah,
I'm trying to see.
take a look on the
Internet service.
internet coverage in town
So
through,
this is the red is where there's no internet coverage. Are there houses up there?
Can make that bigger, maybe?
So that Crooked Ledge is right there, and then it's all the ones that are border of probably Montgomery, right?
Yeah, there's houses on Delisle, or a house, I know. of at
A
least.
house on Delisle and former, so where that is actually a discontinued road. That red part right there is a
Oh,
discontinued
okay.
road, as well as.
Hence, they can't
So
get the
red-
internet
Oh,
line down
oh,
there.
so-
Yeah,
Right.
those are discontinued roads.
Yep.
Oh, okay, so
Yep.
there probably aren't any houses up
Yes.
there then, right?
Other than Delisle, yeah. All right,
And then there are little breaks of red here and there, I don't know
little pockets here
what
and there.
that signifies.
Offhand, Chief, since you're here, I mean, I imagine with all your coverage, you have a general sense of where there's poor coverage, low coverage in town? I mean, we're starting to have this talk in terms of preparation for ARPA and broadband coverage as one thing that we might want to take a look at. So maybe just from your own personal knowledge, you could maybe supplement more information than,
As far as internet service,
Yeah.
I wouldn't know.
no, okay. I wasn't sure from the calls that you get or
No,
areas
no.
that, where you think, you
No,
know.
I wouldn't
things
know.
re-
He'd probably have a better assessment on cell phone
Yeah.
and
Cell
radio.
phone, sure, cell phone
Yeah.
But
and
not the internet.
Yeah,
not the internet.
okay, okay.
I think we need more information from
Okay,
Charter
thanks.
than just this map. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
I think we need to know, I don't know.
As I said last time when this came up, I think this is great to have this, because this answers the question is, where do you have service?
Right.
It doesn't say what level of service or where do you have service issues. And one of the, which, you know, it only happens every 10 years, so maybe I missed it, but the 2020 census data for Southampton reflected that 98.8% of the homes in Southampton have internet connection.
Right.
So it's less than 2%. But I think the question you guys are trying to address is based on the feedback of poor
Yeah. right.
connection activity,
Right.
which is, I think, a different question to ask.
correct, yeah, no, that may be very true.
Or a weaker signal, and then if you pay more, you get a faster,
Right.
stronger signal, is the option right
Right.
now that they're
Right.
offering.
Perhaps asking Comcast, where are they getting service calls,
Yes.
Yeah,
like pole locations,
Charter, you mean, yeah.
Yeah.
charter.
Yeah. Yeah, so, okay, well, it's at least a piece of data as we start thinking about ARPA. We're not there yet.
And when we're aware as the town builds out too.
Yeah.
And the population grows.
For sure. Yep. Okay, anything else on that?
I don't think so.
All right. Moving on, okay, just very briefly on the, let's see, the ARPA survey update. There's a thing I sent around this afternoon, sorry, I forgot to send it to Ed earlier. I'd only added a couple of, this is still very much a draft form, version 2. Basically, we've got about 8 questions right now. I made some changes based on our comments last time. Rini provided some input. John, I got some inspiration from your couple questions as well. So basically, the first one is talking about what describes your situation, about where you live and work in Southampton, or you own a business here, or you recently moved here. It's that kind of demographic stuff. Age range, and then what areas should we invest our ARPA money? What we did this time was to split it out. I had it all in one big question last time, and I split it out to the things like water and sewer infrastructure, broadband access and affordability, direct assistance to households, support for small business, development or recovery, replace lost government revenue and restore delayed projects and services, and other public safety programs like youth violence prevention and intervention, mental health and substance abuse services. Out of that one, the one I guess I have a particular question about, although it's there in the ARPA guidance, is what that replace lost government revenue and restore projects means. I think that's a not an understandable one in that language until we define that. So replace lost government revenue. I don't know how we would modify that, but that was something that I believe is part of the ARPA.
Override either.
The things that are okay with ARPA, but it's, you know, we can't use it to supplement, you know, we can't make more in our reserve fund, for example.
I
or
think an
stuff like that.
example might be if historically, I'll make this up so I don't get hauled on the carpet, but if historically, if our meals tax is $150,000 a year,
Right.
and last year during COVID, we only saw 75,000 of it.
Correct, yeah.
Would that
It would
be
be
an
that
example
kind
of
of
lost
thing, I
revenue?
think,
But
right.
That would make sense.
But I'm not sure that the question, the way it's phrased
Yeah.
here, is in plain enough English for anybody to understand what the heck it refers
It is
to. So
yeah.
that's one that I think just we need some rewording on somehow.
And people wouldn't have that information
It wouldn't,
to know to
So,
respond to
I don't
that.
know how we
We'd
do
almost
it.
have to give them,
Right.
this
You'd
is
have to
how
give
we,
it to 'em.
this
Yes.
is how we experience
Yes.
lost revenue.
Correct.
Yes.
Da-da-da.
Yeah, there'd have to be a little bit more explanation there. What we did, though, is take out the ones that are more town-focused, that are, we're not sure that they qualify under ARPA, and made a separate question with those. And for each of these, we've got about 6 or 7 items and saying, select 4 out of your top 4. The next one is, if funds should be available for any of the following items, where else should we invest our ARPA money? Select up to 4. And the things that are listed there are public safety facilities and equipment, senior center development, HVAC improvements in town buildings, direct assistance to children and families for technology education and/or equipment, improve, expand park and recreation areas, community solar energy initiatives, and disaster and severe weather preparedness and mitigation. So those are ones where we're not totally sure that they fit yet with ARPA, although we've seen some interesting articles in other
communities.
towns of how they're planning on using millions of dollars. I think it was, was it Springfield or West Springfield?
West Springfield.
West Springfield, something like $6 million for an athletic field?
Well, I'm about to put my foot in my mouth since I live in that community, but thank you for actually giving me the opportunity to fill out that survey the other night. The one thing to keep in the back of your minds with ARPA funds, unlike CARES funds, which we had to apply for, and they said, yes, it's eligible, no,
Sure.
it's not, blah, blah, blah.
Yep,
Basically, with ARPA funds, they've given us the categories.
yep,
However, they're totally leaving it to
Yeah.
the community's, shall we say, perception of those to spend them in the right way.
yeah.
And the penalty only comes when the true-up comes from the federal government and they say, you spent that there? No, we're not giving you the reimbursement.
Yeah, yeah. Anyway, it's kind of an interesting point here.
So,
But
well, yeah, so under those others that we have in there,
yeah,
I don't want to necessarily open Pandora's box.
Yeah.
But I wonder if it makes sense to put in other and then put a blank line.
yeah,
If-
make a
if-
blank.
If somebody else out there, if they're thinking of something.
Allow somebody to write in something, you could,
Yeah.
yeah. It's a matter of how you phrase the question, yeah.
Do I see it here?
Yeah.
What happened to premium pay? Wasn't that in our first, I mean, because that is one of the,
I didn't put it in here originally, I don't think I put it in there.
It
I
was
guess-
in one version that I saw.
Was it?
Yeah.
Maybe it got
Yes,
lost
it
in the
was.
I mean, I think that would go under the top section.
cut
I
and
mean,
paste and premium pay, yeah. And again, we'd probably have to explain that a little bit more as well.
Because another use of the ARPA funds is you could actually just divide it up and give it back to the taxpayers.
Yeah,
You could.
I
mean, You're
suppose.
just giving back their federal dollars.
And then when the government comes back and says they will
Yeah.
approve that expenditure.
No, that one's actually in there. You can
It
give it,
is?
you can give it back to the taxpayers, or you can give it to a nonprofit.
Well,
So, anyway, continuing on.
Isn't the Council on Aging its own nonprofit?
There's only been a couple of changes, so we did talk about, what has been the level of impact COVID has had on your household, and then the other one, if COVID has had a negative impact on your household, what
Bless you.
assistance do you need? Bless you. And that's everything from food assistance, rental assistance. We ask people to choose up to 3 things that might be necessary for them to get through their daily lives. And if you're an employer, which of the following statements best describes your current employee situation? Fully staffed, having no difficulties finding and retaining employees. Fully staffed but can't find employees. Understaffed, not applicable, et cetera. So there's that. And then the last one that got added, and John, this is totally based on emails
Yep.
you and school principal, et cetera, putting some heads together. I don't know if this makes sense as a question, but we had expressed concern at the last meeting about trying to get down to the family and kids level to really understand what the impact of COVID-19 has been, really at the
Childcare.
household level per se, if you will. So this is just a stab at a question, totally draft. For parents/guardians of students at William E. Norris School, recognizing the unique educational challenges COVID presented and the learning gap that followed, what assistance do you think would best benefit your student if funds were available? Select only 2. And the choices here are a full-time math interventionist, a full-time reading interventionist, dedicated summer school sessions, a behavioral technician to assist students with social, emotional, and behavioral needs, all of the above. So just throwing it out there. That's a brand-new one since the last time we met.
Well, that focuses specifically on Norris. If I only had kids at Hampshire Regional, and
Ah,
I had to
okay.
spend all this money on
Well-
technology and,
Emailed out late.
Yep,
you know,
good point. We need to figure out all the schools, not
just
just
think it
Norris.
should be broader.
Right now.
Sure. Why not?
If families, we're trying to get to the level of households, if they're
Yeah.
spending lots of money extra because of COVID, because
Yeah,
now you need, you know, a person has to work at home, and now you need someone to be there with your child, teaching them on the computer the whole time. I mean, we just have to figure out.
I think it's worded more to that age population.
yeah.
'cause
So I guess that's what the question was. Originally, this started out much more at the elementary school. That was the focus. And I don't know if that could stand as its own question, because these were some of the suggestions as to the solutions that would be particular to Norris. You know, the math interventionist, the reading specialist, et cetera. Now, there may very well need to be another high school level, middle school, high school level question with some choices. I just don't know what those are. I would be glad to hear from anybody with a draft question or two.
I can send the same question to the chair of that committee.
Okay.
I don't know about the two vocational schools, because those school committees are
Yeah.
Northampton and
Yeah.
Westfield.
Well, I think we can have a,
But just before Tammy goes on that comment, I don't know how, short of spending the money on a program within the boundaries of Southampton, how we would take Southampton ARPA funds and send it to those neighboring communities.
can we do
to put into that.
a level of community support from the ARPA funds?
Well, I think
Well,
we're
and
still
that-
going back
that-
to the household. I think that's
Yeah.
what we're trying to get to.
Yeah. Okay. Tammy, yeah.
Yeah, Tamara Linus, 298 College Highway. I do know that for the technical vocational schools, they did not follow. They were required to be at schools for vocationals. So they, you know, I did see problems in Hampshire. But for the vocational schools, not really, because they made it work. They still did all their 8 classes every day when it was a regular day. They still had their basically 2 weeks of academics crammed into 1 week,
Okay.
and then had to be at school for their shops. There was no way to learn your shop, your trade,
Right.
over
Sure.
the internet. So that is, but also to John's point that you'd be sending it to a different town.
Yeah.
And we'd really rather have that focused here at the school and,
Okay.
or here in our own
Yeah.
town.
So I think it's more, you know, back to part of what Rinnie's saying is, you know, for those that have, for Southampton residents, I mean, normally the first question would be on the survey, I suppose, you know, are you a resident of Southampton? Rather than just doing that, I phrased it differently. So it's, I live and work in Southampton, I live in Southampton but work elsewhere. I own a business in Southampton, I'm retired and live in Southampton. I recently moved, I've lived here for whatever, I don't live in Southampton, but I own property in town. So that is a long-winded way of getting some
Right.
residency.
But you are covering everything. You're
Tried to with that.
letting everybody participate
Right.
in it.
So I think the notion
So,
is
I'm
parents
sorry,
of,
so-
parents of students at Hampshire,
Right, so your second, you
Yeah.
leave your first question the way it is, you add a second question.
okay,
For your household, do you have any residents currently involved in K through 12? So you get the respondents to identify whether or not they have school-aged children within the house. All right, and then it's the whole thing, and then when we get to that question at the back about school, we can zero it, well, you don't want to zero it down, you want to look at the whole thing, but you could also isolate and slice it. What did those that identified as parents or guardians,
yeah,
what were their answers over there?
Right.
On that section?
okay. So for your household, do you have
School-aged children,
school-aged children?
yes or no?
And would you break it from K to 6 and 7 to 12, or not?
You could ask them to identify how many.
In each category.
They're on their own for their learning gap.
Okay.
Everybody got to do a
All right,
semester
so that's,
abroad.
I feel we're getting a little bit closer. I mean, we still got some ways to go here, but,
And the other
Yeah.
question where you're asking about, of the employer, and are you going to specify whose business is in Southampton?
Okay.
Are we asking generically if you're an
correct.
employer?
Yep, no, needs to be, yeah, an employer, oops. Hello, lost it. Thank you. That'd be kind of hard for me to get that, thanks. Yes, an employer in Southampton, thank
Yes.
you. Yep, good point. Okay, so that's just, it's a work in progress, but again, I would like to get it out maybe mid-month, mid-December. So if we have another tweak at it, maybe we can come to conclusion, okay?
Can I mention something about ARPA funds in general?
Sure.
We heard Jim Lunas talk about, geez, I'd be happy with 10% of it, especially the first, before the 2024. It's, we heard loud and clear, water, broadband, sewer. And as far as charter, I just feel like we need more information. It's one of the things that we hear the most complaints about, and it's also came up in the top 3 on the master plan survey.
Yeah.
So I think we just have to investigate that more and see how we can improve
Yep.
communication in town.
Okay, good point. And we do have, I don't have my list with me, but I know they aren't coming up anytime soon, but we do have them on our list to come and do a report, but maybe we need to have, invite our charter rep sometime to a meeting,
I
and,
think
Before that, yeah.
That'd be a great
sometime
idea.
in the, early part of the new year and
Yeah.
get the person here and, maybe give them a list of questions ahead of time, so that they're not totally blindsided, but could come in and kind of accurately address, some of the concerns that we have. I think that would be a useful thing to do perhaps in early January.
I know when I reached out to him, he was very willing to do that.
Uh-huh.
And he was very surprised by some of the information I said.
Yeah, okay. All right. Moving on here, we've got just one more thing to mention briefly before we get into the town meeting articles. And I wanted to bring this up, the FY '23 budget process. We're about at that time, and I asked that in your packets, you've got a copy of the town bylaw that is the town budget process. And one of the things that it talks about here is that the select board is going to obviously figure out some of our priorities and prepare the annual operating budget for the town meeting next year. But on or about December 1, the town administrator is going to forward to all departments and committees a budget schedule, which will include timeframes and deadlines for actions to prepare the budget, together with our budget priorities and guidelines, et cetera. So this is something I think I just wanted to bring up, that we have it on our radar. It's a next priority, with some dates that we want to follow this year, to get budget processes started, certainly in December. And I don't think we have any thoughts yet about budget priorities perhaps, but something that can be on our agenda for discussion in the early December meeting, but just some thoughts. Yeah, John?
No, I'm all in favor of that, but I don't have that.
I'm looking for mine too.
Yep.
In the packet.
It's on the back of probably, so I just stapled mine together because I
Cost
can't lose them.
efficiency on the
Yeah,
back of the
just
cost.
go ahead and share that. It's just a one
Yeah.
pager thing.
Yeah, I know, I saw it, I just don't know where it
Okay.
is.
Yeah. So basically, this is just right out of the town general bylaws.
Right.
Okay. So Ed, any thoughts about that in terms of, I know we haven't had a capital meeting yet. They're going to be needing to get organized and get going at some point, but you're going to be reaching out to them and all the departments, right? Once we have our discussion
Two
about,
separate letters will go out, one
Okay.
for capital and one for the operating budget. And what
Okay.
I'll tell them in the operating budget one is that Bradley will be sending out the discs to fill in.
okay. Okay, are we going to do something like some sort of a spreadsheet like we did last year probably, or?
Yes.
Okay. All right, so we probably need to have this on the agenda for next meeting to talk about some of our budget priorities where we would like to try to focus town resources so that the department heads can think along those lines. Okay? So just to have that on our radar screen. All right. Thank you. So with that, let's move on to the town meeting articles. Now that I added one for us, and we have a draft little package of them that Ed handed out this evening, I believe. And I think, Ed, you said don't bother yet with the table of contents. It may or may not match yet.
Actually, it does match.
Oh, it does, okay. Okay, fine.
Probably, I haven't, well, no, it won't match anymore because I know we're going to add one, but.
Yeah, okay. All right. Well, if we add the web page maintenance one, that's got to get included in here, but, so, all right. So what I see right now, not counting, so right now it looks like we have 16 articles. And with the web page, that would be 17.
Sounds
Oops,
right.
Did I miss anything on the agenda? Am I okay? Yeah, okay. I am. We're good. We're on the right spot.
Correct. If you add one for the webpage maintenance, we'll be at 17.
Yep. All right, so we had gone through, I think, and voted on some of these last meeting, and there were a couple that we had questions on, if I remember myself correctly. But do we want to just refresh our minds on this? How would we like to proceed here? I want to be sure, I know we've done a bit of cutting and pasting. We need to be sure that we've got everything on here that we need to have on here. So,
Are we also looking at formatting and typos?
no, I don't know if we're looking at formatting and typos at this point in time. This is just a beginning draft, is it? Or, I don't know, Ed. We've got to get this
You
signed.
can let me know about typos. Formatting, no.
Okay, typos if you see some?
Yes, there's one on the table of contents.
Oh.
I wouldn't worry about that.
No surprise yet. Okay, but the idea would be to try and get this signed by when? Tomorrow?
Well, but my intent is, let me know what edits it are. I'm going to work on it tonight, and I will start chasing, I won't say chasing, I will start tracking you down for your availability starting tomorrow for the signatures, because you will vote what you want for edits, and also please vote to be able to sign it. The intent is the constable will post these Monday morning. Or get them Monday morning for posting. So sometime between probably tomorrow, it won't be Thursday, but maybe sometime on Friday or Saturday or Sunday, I will make it a point to get everyone's signature on the final version.
Okay. So let's go through these and so again, a lot of these we did vote to approve to put on the warrant last meeting. We had 2 or 3 that we were not sure about, if I remember. And then we had talked about, well, I don't know, what's the most efficient way to go through these? You want to just run through them very briefly here without reading the whole thing, but unpaid bills is the first one?
Yeah, just go down,
You want to hear the
down through it.
typos too?
Yeah, if you hear the typos, let's do that at the same time. Yes, sir, Mr. Moderator.
Robert Floyd, College Highway, speaking as town moderator. Just so there's no surprises, I may divide the question for Article 2 and have 4 separate votes. And you might want to think a quick analogy. Imagine taking 4 vitamin pills, large, all at once, versus taking them one at a time. Taking them one at a time will run smoother.
Well, it's just going to create more articles, though, and I think these were, because they're all
The sense
within,
isn't that it will take more time.
but these are all within individual transfers within the same department. I think that was our thinking, but is the voting percentage different? Is it all?
No, they're all the same.
All the same?
Let the moderator divide the question if he sees fit.
Okay.
Rather than adding the articles, is my recommendation.
Okay.
Right.
Okay, so divide the question is what you're saying then?
It is possibility, probability, yes.
Okay.
Not certain.
Okay, all right, understood. Okay, so we have unpaid bills, that's on the raw materials recovery and the water department.
There's a typo, there are 2 typos. in
Typos
that
where? On that first
one.
page?
To see the town needs to be capitalized, and then in.
I can't hear.
Come again?
And which article are you reading?
Article 1,
Yep,
the word town needs to be capitalized,
yep.
and the name of the corporation opposite the 583 materials needs to be capitalized.
Yep, okay. Raw Materials Recovery Corporation, just capitalization on the.
Yeah.
So just
Got it.
see if
Thank
the
you.
town and raw materials, okay? All right, and then transfers for the police department. Operating expenses. And this is a total of $35,650 from within their various budget accounts. Police overtime, police expense, police building, police equipment, maintenance. Okay. Third one, Article 3, transfers for library to meet accreditation and expand hours. And this was funds from the retirement contributory account.
Correct.
And it has to be worded this way, I believe, right? That's what we said for the state to assure the accreditation by breaking out that 97 into these different line amounts, the wage account, library maintenance, and utilities account.
Correct.
So that they see that that's actually all appropriated by the town. And there was a note I had, and I put my fingers, oh, here it is. And just a note from Barbara,
Yeah.
the library director, just
'Cause
saying,
Reedy had asked this question, so it's
Yeah.
got a draft of what
Yeah.
they expect this funding would do as far as expanding their
Right.
hours.
good. So this, should this pass, and this is going to increase the hours at the library from 29 to 38. They were basically open 38 hours a week before the cuts, even though the hours were a little bit different. Right now, basically Mondays, they're closed, and that probably would be one of the days they would open and switch around some hours. But that's the impact, would be to go from 29 hours to 38 hours of the library being open. Okay?
Good.
Number 4, transfer for accounting expenses for previous temporary accountant, to see if the town will transfer 7840 from the town accountant wage to the expense account. This is for the temporary accountant, so this was for the company, the firm that we had hired to do the previous work
Correct.
that employed the person that we had with us, okay? So that's Article 4, okay? 5, transfer vendor to help with FY '22 tax recap submittal. And this is for $1560 from the assistant accountant wage account to the accounting expense account for the cost of a vendor to help compile and submit the FY '22 recap forms, tax recap forms. Okay, any comments so far? I'm just gonna kind of look at these. I don't see typos as we're going here, but is there another one related to that, Ed? Wasn't there one in terms of no?
Yes, 10.
The tax recap, was there only one related to tax recap?
Yeah, only one with the tax recap.
Yeah,
10 is
I
about
mean,
the
you've got
finance,
3 that
closing
are
the
somewhat
books.
related. You've got the transfer accounting expenses for previous temporary accountant, which is Article 4.
Okay,
You've got the Article 5, which is transfer for vendor to help with fiscal year 2022 tax recap submittal,
Right.
which is Article 5.
okay.
And then I would also say somewhat related would be
Article 10,
Article 10, which is transfer for funding for vendor assistance with fiscal year 2021 financial book closure.
okay, so we'll get to that one. I just want to make, now, is there any, does it matter in terms of order? Does it make sense to put the accounting type ones all together, or does it not matter?
I don't think it matters. I kind of looked at it, the unpaid bills were first. After that, I kind of tried to label most of the transfers.
Yeah.
And
Gotcha.
then get into what would be, shall we say, new appropriations.
Okay,
But, yeah,
Okay.
I can move these around any way you would like, so.
all right, well, we'll get to that at the end. Okay, so Article 6, just going in order, transfer for employment advertising expenses, $105 for advertising incurred. I'm just wondering if right in between 6 and 7 might be where we would put the webpage maintenance one as a suggestion? Possibly? rather than tagging it at the end, or,
I was going to suggest that it get inserted somewhere.
yeah?
Yeah,
so maybe-
That would
rather
make
than
sense.
being at the end.
Yeah, so
And
maybe
that
it's-
that could be anywhere between,
Yeah.
number 6 probably
Yeah.
up
It feels like it would
up
fit.
through number 8, probably, yeah.
Yeah, somewhere in there it would fit, okay. All right, and let's see, current number 7, transfer for an additional voting machine needed for the 2nd precinct. This is for $5,700 from the retirement contributory account to the town clerk, and I think we talked about not calling it capital account.
Yep, that's correct. My fault.
Call it
I'm
something
bad.
else.
Equipment account, I think we
Equipment
said.
account,
Yeah.
to purchase 1 voting machine, okay? Article 8, funding for additional tree removal to see if the town will vote to transfer a total of $8,000 from the operating stabilization account to the tree warden expense account. I think we had voted okay on that one last week, am I
Yeah,
not?
and I had followed up and just
We did.
asked, there's no other funding source for that, right?
Not that I can identify.
Yeah. And this, I forgot,
At least one funding source without splitting it, maybe
Right.
5 or 6 different places.
right. And I think we had seen, I forget, I looked it up somewhere, but we're definitely getting low on the,
It's empty, pretty much.
Yeah,
Yeah,
he's got some invoices that haven't
right, that
been
haven't
paid
been
yet. And they
paid,
just
yeah. It
took
was a
that-
budgeted item at 8,000 originally.
They just took that huge tree down on East Street that I
Uh-huh.
know is going to be a good-size invoice.
Oh, yeah, okay. So this is 8,000 from the operating stabilization account, okay? The next one, number 9, transfer for funding FY '22 ambulance debt. Vote to transfer $69,766.61 from ambulance receipts, blah, 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 and transfer $68,065 to the debt ambulance principal account and the balance there to the interest account. Okay, on the newest ambulance, that seems
Just on that one, there's a
Yep.
double dollar sign.
double dollar sign, yes.
Principal payment.
Right before
68,065.
68,000, double dollar sign.
Well, it's because the principal is much bigger than the interest.
Don't want, we don't
Very
want
clever.
people thinking it's an extra
Okay.
figure there.
Now, Article 10 is where we need to fill in the blanks. Transfer for funding for vendor assistance with FY '21 financial book closure.
35,000?
So we had said 35,000 before, is that still what everybody's comfortable with? Agreeing to?
I just,
Yeah.
it's the wording that bothers me, not the dollar amount.
Okay,
This, how I read this, let's just say for discussion, it's 35,000.
uh-huh,
To see if the town will vote to transfer a total of $35,000 from stabilization account to the town account expenses, da, 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 da. So if that passes, there's no discretion. It's 35,000 coming out of operations stabilization and going into that account. And just say miracle of all miracles happen and it only costs us 20,000. That's 15,000 that we'd have to take another vote to get it back into operational.
right.
You know, and I
You
know,
say
and
up
I know
to?
when I mentioned this before,
Yeah.
Ed cautioned against it, and I was participating via remote, so I didn't really hear everything
Yeah.
Ed said.
We talked about a not to exceed language,
Or
but,
Right.
up to 35,000.
Cannot
Right.
use an up to. It has to be an appropriation transfer dollar amount specific.
Then we deal.
If needed, $35,000 if needed. Yeah, so I don't think I can,
and you can't put, could we put a range in? No?
You have to appropriate or transfer
Exact
a
amount of
specific
money.
dollar amount.
Yeah,
Okay. Okay. And if it's in excess, then we'll have to,
well, excess is simple, but you
Yes.
can't sign account, you know. No.
Right. Excess ends up flowing back to free cash,
right.
blah, blah, blah.
Well,
So,
technically, the same thing would happen here, right? Yes.
right.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
but to your point, you're right. If you had $15,000 that wasn't utilized, it's going to flow back to free cash, however, only, and I have to look at the percentages, I think it's only 35% of that 15,000 would flow back to operating stabilization again by the policy. So, you know, I get where you're coming from. I mean, you try to be as accurate as possible and not be either overly wasteful or, you know, overly underfunded, too.
Right. Well, are we okay with it, the way it is? All right. 35,000 is what we had said. Based on the
Well,
lowest.
it's what I recommended.
Based on the
Yeah.
lowest quote that we have at the moment. I mean,
Yeah.
I suppose suppose we get our second proposal in and it's less. We won't have the ability to change this at that point in time. If we don't hear from them till next week, right? So.
Well, if we get that second proposal
Amended on the floor.
before December 14th, you can, well, number one, you could either make a motion to amend,
Yeah.
or if you knew about it, speak to the moderator and say, we've got a different motion, are we okay reading the different motion rather
Okay.
than trying to amend the one that's in the booklet?
Gotcha. Okay, all right, well, that we're kind of covered there.
Yeah,
Okay.
And, you know, and some of the other piece of, I am fiscally conservative, so that's why I went with the 35, and I also think about it also to some extent is, okay, you know, let's prioritize what they want to do. If they may know they only got $35,000 to, you know, work with, maybe some of the lesser demand stuff that may take longer, they put off, or maybe it becomes a bargaining chip
Yeah.
as
So
we go
what ab-
through.
Sensing your answer is going to be no, but what about the thought of instead of transferring this money to the town account and expense account, transferring it to the reserve fund? And do the expenses out of there? I mean, at least it keeps it separated. You can't tag another bill onto it. If it's in the expense account, it's in the expense account.
Think about this, John. The reserve account is strictly for unanticipated expenses. We just put this on a town meeting warrant. How can you
Special
say
town
that's
meeting, though.
How can you say that's now unanticipated?
Isn't it
or
overseen by the
unexpected?
finance department too?
Right, more eyes looking at it.
I don't think that's a good idea at all.
Well, I don't think it's legally possible, because once you've identified it, it's not unexpected, unanticipated, what have you.
Well, I guess I would argue you guys knew about this at the last budget. Why wasn't it budgeted then?
Well.
Easy for me to say I was on the other side of the table, but I mean,
No, we had no
Are you
idea
the pot or the
extent of
kettle?
work.
I'm the half glass of water.
Well, let's say we get a proposal that comes out at $44,000 and we had only budgeted $35,000. It's not going to be less than that, I can tell you that. If it's, 44 and it's over, we'll just negotiate and absorb part of it. You know, Bradley could pick up this, or, you know, I just feel like,
Yeah.
you know, I think this is safer to go with a lower amount. I can't imagine it's going to come in lower than that. Do you?
Me? No, I don't. Considering the person, the firm that's giving us the quote
Yeah.
is the one that's doing our books and knows
Right.
firsthand the status of
Yeah.
this knuckle that we've created.
I mean, if they give us a proposal and it ends up being more than 35,000, are we going to be able to negotiate and say, no, take off 7,000 to 8,000 and just do this part because we only have $35,000 budgeted?
Well, what's going to happen is,
Maybe by an hourly rate, right?
well, basically, they're going to bill us an hourly rate depending on the person that's doing it. So probably what I would suggest doing is we end up prioritizing
Yeah.
from 1 to 10 or 8 or whatever it is,
Right.
what we want them to do. And as that goes along and the dollars tick up or whatever, we can gauge of, okay, are we going to get through everything that we anticipated, or, you know, are we not, or are we going to actually have some funds left that weren't originally needed?
Okay.
I think
Required.
it's not the best scenario, but it's the best we can probably come up with.
Okay.
So, Chris, now that we filled in the dollar amount, do we actually have to vote that one? Because I think we passed it last week.
Right, you're right,
We didn't actually take a vote on it?
yes, you should.
I'm losing my voice.
Want me to go get you some
Oh,
water?
would you like me to make the, okay.
Give you some water?
Does,
I haven't opened that yet. Help yourself.
make a motion to approve Article 10, transfer funding for vendor assistance with fiscal year 2021 financial book closure, to see if the town will vote to transfer a total of $35,000 from the operating stabilization account to the town account expense account, to engage a vendor to help close the fiscal 2021 fiscal records of the town, or to take any other action relative thereto. Is there a second?
Second.
Second.
Seconded by Francine. Discussion. I'll call for the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carries unanimously.
Thank you.
Now, even though you've already voted, other than the up to, exceeding, or any of that, is, because this is one I did struggle with, the language, the actual wording. Is everybody good with the wording that I used in there, to engage a vendor to help close the fiscal year 21 financial records?
Now you ask us?
When I said any discussion, that was your time to chime in.
Please, let me.
Yes, we're fine.
Okay.
Article 11. Madam Chair, back to you.
Take your track yet?
I think so.
We'll try.
Okay. Wow. Article 11. Funding for 2 recycling containers for the transfer station. Let's see. $25,500. 2 replacement recycling containers.
My only question there is, it looks to be a negative with the parentheses. Is there a reason for that? Is it because it's in the enterprise?
Oh, I mean around the dollar amount?
Yeah, everywhere else you have them as positives.
Well, and everywhere.
Oh, no, I should have put, oh, you're right, I did not put,
Spelled it out, yeah, right.
yeah.
Yeah, and everywhere else, we haven't actually written out the wording, the
Yeah,
the
take
amount of
the
dollars.
written
Yeah.
out and just use the number, yeah.
Just use the number rather than,
Frequently, I will put the,
Yep,
shows you not the written, but the figurative dollar amount in
Yep.
parentheses,
Yeah.
so.
You're right.
You're correct, to be consistent, I don't need that.
Right.
Or we don't need that.
right, just be consistent with the 25.5, yep. All right, Article 12. Transfer for funding for ambulance staffing, thank you. See if the town will vote to transfer $30,000 from ambulance receipts to the EMS wage account for staffing of ambulance shifts.
should ambulance shifts be capitalized? Is that a line?
Doesn't
item?
have to be.
I wouldn't think so.
Okay, then.
Okay.
So again, I know we voted on this and I was in the minority. I understand the reason for doing this. This is, to me, putting the cart before the horse. You're approving the money, which is only needed to increase wages when the whole internal process hasn't been completed yet, or even started. But my guess is it's because this has to be done at a special town meeting, and we don't want to have another one before May.
Well, I
And it's
mean,
kind of a timing, or is it to other members, just one time, other members' thoughts is, this really isn't the way to do this. It's supposed to be done at the budget process and
Right.
not in the intermittent.
well, except two things. And actually, since the ambulance dent went up a little bit, John had said at the last meeting that, so far, year-to-date, we'd taken in $84,000, according to the coastal reports. One of the pieces of that annual budget piece, and please remember that we did allocate $100,000 into the revenue account from ambulance receipts at that point in time. We really can't appropriate anything we don't have, during the year. So actually, honestly, in that first year I came here, I think they allocated some in the annual budget. They allocated some in that January special town meeting that was like 2 days after I started work here. And then they allocated, I believe, some again at the annual town meeting in May, but it was for the previous fiscal year. So theoretically, you could only appropriate how much ambulance receipts you have. So, I mean, you could look at your budget and say, well, I want to use 100,000 for operating, I want to use, you know, $75,000 for, out of there for the ambulance debt, and I want to use another, I don't know, $50,000 to amend the wages or whatever. But if you don't have that total, you can't do it at that time.
Well, for me, it's really an issue of, I keep on my desktop a document that says what the DOR recommended, and it's not mid-year raises, it's, you know, it's not capital things, it should be, these things should be at the annual town meeting. And, but in this case, and in the case of the trees, it was really about public safety. So that was balancing the DOR recommendations against public safety. I mean.
Well, and I agree, I mean, so I separate the trees aside. I can say, okay, that, in theory, that's a one-time thing, and that's gonna happen, although
it's already happened
everybody acknowledges that it's a structural deficit
Right.
that's built in the budget. But I still don't have, during the budget process, and I didn't participate on this side of the table during the last budget, right? So I wasn't even looking at any of this stuff. But I would expect, being the liaison to the finance committee this time around when it comes through, is we voted to have an ambulance service 24/7 in town. That costs X, what is it? And I understand the past practice is just kind of split the wages and all that, but we didn't pay to have a paid fire department. It's a paid on-call as needed. That should be a separate line item tracked. How much is it costing us to actually do that? And, you know, if you got a paramedic and an EMT and they both make the fixed wage, you do the math, there's your number on what it is. And what are the stats? You know, I asked the question, how many hours has the ambulance been dark? I don't know. And, you know, in fairness, John did reach out to me, and we just haven't coordinated to get together to answer these questions. But I would expect a very lengthy, involved, multi-hour finance committee meeting to answer all these questions. And then ultimately, I probably would support this, but doing it this way beforehand, I don't have a comfort. But if there was only $86,000 in ambulance receipts, and the motion before this pulls 69,000 out, is there even $30,000 in there to appropriate? Is that the point you were trying to make, Ed?
That was it.
Cut to the chase sometimes and just.
So yes or no, yes?
I mean, you can do it. It's basically, let's see, 70, oh, you're at 100,000. So, yeah, that means between the last coastal report and theoretically the town meeting, you've got to take in another $16,000 to be there. I mean, the other way theoretically to go is you could actually, and yes, it's going to require another town meeting, but you could say, okay, we're going to appropriate $15,000 at this point in time, and when the annual town meeting comes up, we're going to look to appropriate another, you know, $15,000, or you can see where the heck we are and say, well, maybe that is $17,000, or maybe it's $12,000.
I'm not 100% comfortable with it, but I do think it's an element of public safety. And I also know that every action has an equal and opposite reaction. And, you know, highways, public safety, and police, public safety, and there's a lot of public safety. And so on one level, it's.
And
makes
this
me uncomfortable.
84,000 was through what, the end of October? Or,
I'd have to go back and look at the coastal report he had for that.
okay.
Are we going to be required to have another special town meeting anyways if we want to spend ARPA funds, or are we just free to do that?
On the ARPA
without-
funds, no.
Okay.
I mean,
So there isn't something else looming out there that regardless of what we do is going to trigger right now that we know of
Not that we know of
another
for-
special town meeting?
for special time.
not that we're sure of,
We don't
you know,
need it.
does something pop up along, you know, the way that, you know, all of a sudden there's a grant to purchase a large tract of land or something, and it has to be acted on in a certain amount of time, and the select board's favorable to that. I mean, other than that, I really don't see a specific need for another special town meeting to allocate free, the free cash into the 3 accounts, which is usually done at the STM, because, okay, we can do that at the beginning of the annual town meeting, which we, did this year and put it into its bucket. So, and there are certain things like that you can just do. I mean, theoretically, if you really needed a special town meeting but didn't need it to that time, you could actually double book them and say, okay, Tuesday night at 7 PM, there at Norris School, there is a special town meeting, which has 3 articles on it, and then at 7:30, there's the annual town meeting, so.
Okay, that's, yeah.
What would be the point in that?
That would
It
work.
just kind of separates them
Yeah.
out.
Okay, so are we're comfortable the way it is?
No.
No.
So let's move on.
Let's move on. Yeah, that's the wrong word, okay. All right, we're moving on to number 13. And this one, I believe we did not fully vote on last time, if I'm not mistaken, or
We
did we?
did vote on it, it
We
was
did?
not unanimous.
Right, correct.
Funding for highway dump plow truck borrowing for $294,000 for a new single axle dump truck with plow and sander body for the highway department, and this to be taken by borrowing, raised by borrowing. So we did vote on this. We had, I think it was a 4-to-1 vote, if I'm not mistaken.
Mhm.
Any other comments, further discussion? No? We'll add in this transfer for the web maintenance account. I think we've already mentioned that.
Yeah, and you want me to insert that as Article 7 and move everything else forward? Is that
I
what
think
you're
that
saying?
seems like it would fit there. Yeah. Sure, somewhere in that neighborhood, yeah. Okay. And then you have a question here about article for the annual audit waiver.
Yes, I just want to make sure that that is off the table, or if it's
Yeah.
back on, that's got to be
Yeah.
inserted, so.
Discussion about that? I thought we were kind of leaning to the fact that we probably ought to keep on doing an audit just for the,
I think it's gonna be too much of an uphill battle to try and get that passed,
yeah.
especially
mean-
after we're asking for all this other money.
Yeah,
Well,
we're
I
asking
mean,
for
honestly,
funds to do
given,
it.
given the CARES money that's come in, given, I just think there's a need, given the lack of a full-time accountant all last year, all the stuff that we've been through, COVID on top of it all. It just feels to me like we need to do it just for basic accountability.
It does, but what, and I don't disagree with any of that, Chris, but if Article 13 passes, you got the $294,000, which I'm assuming is going to be amortized over probably 5, maybe 10 years. You could just even call it 10 years generously.
I'm going to say it's between probably
7,
8 to 10 years.
Yeah, 8
All right, so at 10, that's $29,000 plus interest that we're going to have to find in the existing budget. The $35,000 for the, no, forget that, because we're taking it out of operation money. But it's all these new expenses going in, and you think our revenue of 2.5% increase is really going to make up for all this, plus the $500,000 shortfall we had last year that we need to make up?
Well,
We're adding a lot of reoccurring expenses.
well, first of all, didn't we say, I mean, I don't support Article 13 being on the warrant. That sounds to me like it should be an annual town meeting vote. But even at that, we're not going to realize or hear any about that until the following fiscal year.
That was the hope, right? Yep, that we wouldn't be able to take delivery.
So if you're still in support of it being on the warrant, I don't think that we're going to incur any charges in this fiscal year, right?
Probably actually won't show up, I'll bet you, till fiscal year '24 in the budget for payment.
So I don't think we have to worry about that. I do think we need an audit, and I don't know whether
Plan for it.
we're able to, I mean, we can't use Melanson if they're gonna be the ones that get the contract to do the
Right.
close.
Correct.
So that, we couldn't even extend our contract for a year with them on the 3-year contract, right?
You do a 1-year contract, you wouldn't do an extension anyway.
But we wouldn't have them do the audit if they're the
Right.
ones that are
Right.
closing the books anyway.
So if they are not, the only way that
We'd be
would work
looking for another auditing
would be
firm at that point.
either look for
What do we-
another auditor or
Aren't we budgeted for $23,000?
20,
What's that?
21, I believe.
21.5, I think it is.
Okay. And it's still on the budget, right? It's still on the budget?
It's still in there,
We have it
yes.
Yeah.
Then why do we need an article? Why do we need to have?
Oh, that would be to waive it.
That would be to waive the
Oh, to
requirement.
waive
Audit.
Because that's when we're talking about taking the 21.5 and the auditing and transferring that into, to use for the vendor.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
No, I don't support waiving it.
No,
We still,
personally,
I agree, we have
Not
to keep it
after all
in.
the financial
all right.
ups and downs and additions.
Joy, any thoughts? I'm afraid I'll grab it.
Yeah, I don't think, I've always had concerns about it, special penalties if we don't do it.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, so we're going to keep on with the annual audit, okay? All right, and then the last three are from the community preservation projects. Funding for identifying and recording the New Haven Northampton Canal project. There's $20,000, and here too is where you've written out the dollars amount again. I don't know if you just want to be consistent or not, but.
Yeah, I'll take the parentheses away from it.
That's the legal way of writing out numbers?
Yep.
Spell it out, just write
So
the number.
20,000 to the project, recording the path. Okay,
Don't spell out the money, just
yeah,
use the
we'll
number.
just take out the
again.
money, spelling out parts.
What's that?
Again, just spelling out the money. You don't need to write out $20,000.
Yeah, that's kind of my bean counter mentality.
Well, it's only under the CPC ones then, because you've not done it in the others.
If somebody can't recognize it one way, they can recognize it the other way.
All right, whatever.
Yeah, I'll just take out the parentheses.
Article 15, CPC funding for acquisition of Greenway right-of-way and design. And this was the transfer of $270,000 from CPC to the Greenway Committee from their undesignated account. Transfer from community preservation surcharges, undesignated account. Okay.
I'm sure there'll be some explanation about this being moved.
Right. So with any of these, we'll have the actual summary and everything. on
This
the-
is the posting version, and then I have to develop the version that's actually used at the town meeting, which actually has the summary and the motion in it.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
And I wouldn't imagine that Virginia or anybody from CPC would explain that.
No, I would like go to
There should be
Bob
something
Kozub
about-
on Article
yeah.
14. I would probably use my own knowledge and Aaron Toscher's knowledge on the Greenway piece.
Yep.
Yeah, okay, thanks.
All right, and last but not least, CPC funding for
Reading that
Conant
one.
Park walking path and splash pad and acceptance of the park grant. And this is one where
This one is
there's a
definitely.
lot of state
it's-
language that we've got to abide by.
Yeah, so this one's definitely going to change, so in your motion, I would appreciate it if you made it a part of the motion that whatever the town council comes up with in her last draft and Melissa Cryan from the state wants done with it, that be allowed to be used as the actual article, please.
Okay.
And
that-
I will let you know that one of the little twists to Article 16 is that by the state requirement, we have to appropriate the entire cost of the project through this article, which is 192.5. So that's why you're seeing the 192.5
Yeah.
listed.
Of that, there's
in the-
100,000 already from the park grant.
Correct.
And what we're actually going to get from CPC, from their voting, was 86.5.
Correct.
And then there was an additional 6,000 that was going to be local fundraising.
Yeah, so what you'll probably see in the final article is something to the effect appropriate 192.5, and that all of the reimbursement that comes back from the park, that's conditional on receiving the park grant, and that all the reimbursement from the park grant gets returned to the community preservation undesignated account.
Right, okay. And we have to have that language in there about the control of Conant Park, as well as,
Yes.
we've actually already been awarded the grant, but we have
Yeah.
to sort of say that we haven't yet, right?
Well, it just even though we've been awarded, it just kind of all falls into
All-
place
all
too,
goes
yeah.
So what does this mean, though, transfer the care, custody, and control of Conan Park?
Because of the conservation restriction? Is that why?
No, it's not a conservation restriction.
No, because
Well,
if,
it says that at the end.
It has to be.
yeah,
It says, or include in the conveyance of a perpetual conservation restriction in accordance with MGL Chapter 184.
yeah, that won't be needed in this
It
particular
won't
Oh,
be
okay.
in this
case.
one. No,
That's
this has no
That's just
CRI.
templated language.
No, this is to say that this is a permanent park in the town. It's based on that, they had to see the deed and everything else about how this park was given to the town. So there's just, I don't know, whatever the state language is, that some of this is just standard language that they require.
Right.
Okay. All right,
Chris,
so,
can I-
yes, I'm sorry. Thank you.
Tammy Relunas, with the first quarterly report that we were given tonight, with the Water Commission giving an update in regards to us not having enough water during the summer, as much as I love the splash pad, how is that being,
We've already dealt with this. We've had meetings on this. The CPC has had presentations on it.
yeah,
They had a second meeting and they voted to approve it, so.
great, all right, thank you.
I'm not going to open that up again, okay? Do we have to say any more? Is this, I think we already, I mean, they already put it forth. We approved it last meeting, except for this
Right, I just,
language.
like I say, when you make the motion to basically,
Allow you to finalize the language with
that
the
this
state.
is the
state
warrant articles for the special town meeting, approved with any edits, movement of articles, and that article, I won't even say the number because it's going to change, that the CPC funding article for Conan Park grant be edited to required language by town council and the state of Massachusetts.
Okay.
And then you're also going to want to make it part of that motion that once printed, that the select board is also authorizing their signatures to that special town meeting warrant for posting.
Okay.
So one of you should really jump on that quick and say, so moved.
So moved.
Sounds good. So moved on both of these? All right. Could we have a second? Somebody? Anybody? Second? In terms of the appropriate language according to just, town council and the state park program, and then the authority for us to be signing this so that it can be posted.
Constables can post it, correct.
All right, so second motion, all right, seconded. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
All right, good. I think that takes care of the warrant.
Is there anything else we need to discuss as far as the actual day of the town meeting? Is Easthampton Media going to be there? Is, we going to put
Robert
up
Floyd,
notices and boards?
College Highway, good call. I have a volunteer to wipe the microphone with disinfectant, handy wipes or whatever, but
Okay.
no panels, so we're not going to hire anyone to put panels up like we did the last 3 meetings outdoors.
Okay, and I can provide you with the disinfectant and the wipes
Okay,
to help with that.
okay. So December 1st, Wednesday, will be the special town moderator, special town meeting, articles information session.
Okay.
And that will be here, that will be live. Easthampton Media will be streaming it out live. There's probably no plan, except in our heads, how to keep people geographically separate, social distancing. I believe we're not going to have regulators there, so people would be on their comfort zone or common sense.
I would say so, yes.
We will be requiring masks.
You have
I
to,
would
it's
say
in-
so
it's in the
because
school.
that's actually a school requirement when you go in the
School, right.
building, so I would
Yeah.
piggyback on that masks are required.
We asked the Board of Health what their recommendation would be for how that meeting should be set up.
Have
We
you
can.
heard anything from the Board of Health?
No, but I can reach out.
Okay, that'd be good.
They have a meeting coming up before the meet?
Yeah, there's a meeting, I think it's December 1st.
Okay. Okay.
Just check my calendar.
Okay. Yeah, in terms of getting everything set up there.
Good to have mask and hand sanitizer there
Right.
also.
Exactly. Got plenty of that, I'm sure.
Yes, we do.
It's December 6th.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, and your next meeting is the 7th?
Yes,
Yes.
Okay.
the next regular
Yeah.
meeting,
They
correct,
can
Are you
add to
meeting
their
before
agenda.
then? On
for
Thursday?
executive session.
On the
Executive session.
30th, probably, yeah.
Okay, cheers. I
Okay.
thought I heard that, I wasn't sure.
Yep.
Good.
Okay.
You have any more questions,
No,
Rini?
I'm just wondering if there's any other accommodations that should be thought about.
We're not as on top of it as we were outdoors, because everything was new, and the committee was amazing, and, we pulled it off. This, we're going back to the old playbook of having a meeting in Norris School, and except for masks and social distancing and sanitizing the mic, I can't think of anything above and beyond that.
I can't either.
And then
But
just
if-
about
but
setting
we
up
have
tables
time.
and chairs and all that stuff, and benches, how do we?
Well, it's.
They're benches.
Yeah, they're benches that they use from the cafetorium, yeah.
So if anybody's uncomfortable sitting too close, they can always move.
Sure, right.
And go, and there's bleachers, we allow people on the bleachers, so.
Okay.
Contact tracing? Does that have to be done at all?
Well, the town clerk has to have the people sign in for their voting regulations.
Yeah, so it'll be a
and
list,
stuff,
good call.
so We'll have
For anybody
that.
that comes, like, for example, our the principal,
The non-residents.
there should be a separate sign-in for non-residents, I think.
Correct.
Okay.
That's true.
Good.
I would fall into that category, so,
Okay.
yeah.
All right, well, if there's anything else that you think of, let us know in terms of what we
Will do.
need to do. Okay, otherwise?
Okay, thank you.
All right,
Thank you.
thank you,
Well
Rob.
done.
Appreciate it.
Yep. Smaller test run for May.
Okay, and then next then, a couple more items. Personnel change forms. We have a couple here. John alluded to this, and I think I would like to suggest, or John, you may suggest, none of the PDFs that we have here, this is for the resignation of Brianna Eckstadt, the temporary extension, 12-week temporary extension for Janine Domina, additional 12-week temporary appointment for David Zagorski, leave of absence from part-time dispatcher Melissa Roberts-Cote, and firefighter as needed part-time non-benefited Tyler Paschal. Since PQB has not met,
Yeah, I would say we table them and
Okay,
let
but I
them
don't
go
wanna
through the
hold-
process.
I have to look back at the
is
minutes that I
there
got.
anything that's time-sensitive here?
Yeah, I think that the assessor's office, they're on this is in a second temporary 3-month. And I just don't know when they're meeting, but I have the dates and the minutes that they were sent to me, but it might impact their ability to continue.
Yeah.
I don't want to.
I can go see if I've got the originals with the dates on them for, I don't think 12 weeks is right around the corner, but I could be wrong.
But if it was, couldn't they just do a 2-week emergency appointment? We're going to meet next week.
I mean, we could do a few minutes at the beginning of our executive
Oh,
session.
the
if we
meeting
have to.
next week?
Or at the beginning of our executive session, we could do a little bit in open
Oh,
session.
the
if we have to.
PQB is meeting.
Yeah,
next week.
PQB,
is
we're
meeting.
going to post
next
it now that we've got the
Yeah.
contact information and all that.
Well, then that's,
They haven't posted yet though, right, so far, that we know? PQB?
No, I'm going to look though, because I just got the draft minutes from the last meeting.
I mean, my thought would be, given that PQB has not had a chance to meet, I'd like us to get back on the right process that we've put in place, which is Select Board sees these after PQB. I think we've,
it's not posted.
thanks for coming, Tim. We've
It has to be, when
made variations here, but let's get back on
Got to be posted 48
The
hours.
fact that they will have a meeting scheduled, hopefully, at some point, but not yet. Is that the idea? Okay.
No, I could
Okay, well,
ask the town clerk
all
to
right,
post
so
the
let's,
meeting.
while Ed is looking for that, let's just jump on, we don't have any licenses or permits. Francine, would you mind just reading off the warrants for us, please?
Okay, we have vendor warrant W 22-17 for $393,228.83. We have another vendor payable warrant, W 22-17A, for $1,479.19. We have payroll for 22-18 for $282,745.64. We have payroll deduction warrant 22-18 for $43,955.50. Payroll deduction warrant with health insurance and retirement, that's 22-18A for $165,772.60. Vendor payroll warrant and the Hampshire Regional Assessment, 22-19 for $1,446,227.61. A payroll warrant 22-20 for $276,594.56. Payroll deduction warrant 22-20 for $42,612. And vendor payable warrant 22-21 for $911,291.43.
Okay. Good, thank you.
A
Anyone?
long time.
Yeah. Anyone have any questions about any of those? All right. If not, there's nothing else I think that we have to sign that I'm aware of.
Okay.
Pending items, I'm not aware that anything has moved forward with naming rights or, I guess, is that going to be coming up on the bylaws committee? Or?
Yeah, the only change was, making certain that we use the word structure, which it is included, and that will be it. So that'll go to the bylaws, and then it'll come back, and
Yeah.
when it gets on
Okay,
for, I guess, the annual town meeting.
yep. Right, it won't be on now, yep.
Yep.
No updates on the Old Town Hall. I know there had been a meeting of the working group, and Ed had reached out to Hill and Associates to ask them for the cost of doing a complete scope of work for the most essential work that had to be done on that, and that has not been received yet, to my knowledge. No news, as far as I know, on any of the other three, but we'll check that when Ed comes back. Select board meetings on the 7th and 21st, and then the special town meeting on December 14th at 7 PM at Norris School. And while we're just
With
waiting.
a snow date of December 15th, just for those listening at
Yes,
home.
yeah.
Yeah. Exactly. So while we're waiting, for anybody who's still out there listening, I just wanted to say happy Thanksgiving to everybody. I hope you all have a great family and friends gathering in the best of conditions compared to last year, and be smart and be safe, and protect your families and all your friends and neighbors. And Ed, yes?
I would strongly suggest that the board act on the admin assessors, PCF, and no need to act on any of the others. But that one would expire on 11/30. Well, there is no 11/31, so I guess it would be December 1st.
Okay. So this is for Janine, that's the one?
Yeah.
Correct.
All right. Rini, would you like to make a motion on that
I'll
one?
make a motion to approve the continuation of Janine Domina's increased hours not to exceed 16 hours per week for 12 weeks. And this goes through the 4th of February.
Okay. Could I have a second, please?
I'll second.
All right. Any discussion?
Yes.
John?
So that, I didn't quite understand Bradley's, actually, I did understand Bradley's comment on the form, and that was going to be a question I was going to have at the committee. He's stating that there is no funds available to pay for this?
Correct.
So
Not at present.
I would have thought that his signature would indicate that there is, but he signed it and then left a note that there isn't, and that we need another transfer. Isn't that what his note says?
It would be much like the, well, it would be much like the first one that was done, that the admin assessor is working more hours than was authorized in the budget. Therefore, a transfer will be required at the end of the year to, at some point to, in May or June, to actually make up the difference in those hours. So, you know, it would need to be transferred from like the principal assessors.
So that account is already in deficit?
No,
No, it is not.
no, it's not at all.
What he is stating is, the admin assessor makes Y amount of dollars. She is authorized by PCF to work, and I'm just throwing this out, 10 hours a week. That comes to a total amount for the budget year. They are now having that admin assessor work more than those sample of 10 hours a week. It could be 12 or 14.
Yeah.
Therefore, there is not enough funding in that when you get to the end
For
of
the
the
entire
year.
year. There's no budget transfer needed now. He's just signaling that with this increase in hours per week, this is going to
Further action will be required
surpass,
at the
yeah,
end
this is
of the
going to
year.
surpass what was originally budgeted by the end of the entire fiscal year. So this would be one of the typical end-of-year transfers, is the way I'm
Correct.
understanding it. But there's money in the budget line now. You can look on the expense report, there's plenty of money left right
Wow.
now.
At some point, it will go deficit,
Yeah,
correct?
no, but I mean, you're right,
We're not
right
there-
now, there
We're
is.
not there yet, but we
Yeah,
will
right now
be
there is
there.
money there, yeah. Okay, so I think we have a motion on the floor.
And a second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
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 Opposed.
Okay. All right,
The
motion
only other one
carries.
that I wasn't sure about is this Tyler Fischel, given the staffing issues that were mentioned. I don't know if this is someone that would be waiting, you know, to
He's not
be a
coming in for a paramedic, though. He's only firefighter.
EMS.
No, it's just firefighter.
Okay.
Firefighter as needed. Okay. I mean, if we find out that anything is super urgent, we could take these up at the very beginning of the November 30th meeting, when we're in open session, if we had to.
Do you know if this is something that can wait
None of
until our
these-
next meeting?
As far as I'm concerned, it's something that can wait.
Yeah, okay. So let's put everybody else's back on the next agenda then. All right, Ed, we already did the warrants, and we didn't think there was any movement on pending items, is there?
No,
All
you're
right.
correct.
So with that, could I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, thank you very much. We are adjourned at 9:45.